This is Canon Fodder, episode 56, live from the mean streets of Los Angeles. With me this week is, of course, Mr. Glen Rockney of the Rare Candy Podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm well. I was gonna call you like a shitbird or something clever from the book, but I just felt mean off the bat. I just met you. That's mean. But yeah, no, I feel good.
The TR stands for trash can.
Yeah, trash can Hudson. I like it a lot, dude. Yeah, but yeah, no, I'm pumped. I'm back. I'm just reading a lot of crime fiction right now. I'm having like dreams about like my dad being in doing like insider trading and stuff. Like, just weird stuff's happening. Like everything in my mind's a conspiracy right now. Nothing's what it seems. Everything's on the hush hush, So I feel good though. This is great.
Well, it's a perfect mindset to discuss this week's work of fiction, James Ellroy's L.A. Confidential. Probably most well known for the film adaptation in 1997, which by itself is, just a masterpiece of the crime noir sort of genre. But this book, I would say, is the most complex and complicated noir sort of crime fiction book that I've come across. And I've read quite a bit of crime fiction in my day. Probably The Big Sleep is up there in terms of complexity. But L.A. Confidential, what Ellroy does is he really leaves you with more questions than answers towards the end. And it's a great piece, and I'm so happy that you brought it to my attention.
Oh yeah, and with Ellroy, it's funny because how much anytime Ellroy comes across my radar, I've read about eight of his books, I think, and he fries your palate a little bit. It's tough to go to anybody else after. It's because there's this addicting, decadent quality to what he does that you just don't. It reminds me of like in high school when you first see a Tarantino movie, or like middle school or high school, and you're just like, I don't want to see anything else.
I want or for me it was Wes Anderson films.
Something like that. It's something in the nature where can't be like replicated by anybody else. Even if something is equally as good, it's just not that. And that's kind of what anytime I've come back to Ellroy, this is like my third time coming back to Ellroy. I binged a couple other, parts of his catalog separate times. He's what got me back into reading, so I always have a special place in my heart for his work.
Oh, he's terrific. I've heard that his more recent stuff is not very good.
I have it. He has like a Marilyn Monroe historical fiction that
isn't he doing like World War II sort of revisionist or like alternative sort of World War II future stuff?
He did in the past. He has a book called Perfidia, which I haven't read. It's part of his like second LA quartet. I've heard it's good, Perfidia. Like I've heard that
because I heard the exact opposite.
Because that's about Dudley Smith being like a Nazi, basically, or like white nationalist or whatever. Like it's I've heard it's good. That's not an endorsement of me. I've just heard that of the bunch of his new work, that's the one to read.
Got it. Okay, maybe I'll pick it up because I have this. It's sort of like a used bookstore warehouse, and they have the only Ellroy that they had was a hardback edition of Perfidia.
Yeah.
So
it's a brick. It sticks out like it sticks out like a sore thumb on the shelf. That's how I bought it. Mine was autographed, and it was like $9 at the used.
Oh, that's very cool.
I was like, yeah, why would I not get that?
Yeah. I ended up splurging a little bit with my Ellroy books. I've got the Everyman's Library editions of his LA Quartet and Underworld America or Underworld USA trilogy, I think it's called. So I splurged a little bit with those. I try and pick up Everyman's editions when I can, because they're probably for the money probably the best books you can buy in terms of quality, commentary, all that stuff.
And also, I can now say this: it has replayability. This is the first one I've read on a second time, and I was like, it's even better the second time. It's just knowing. I again, the ending is so going every way. There's definitely details I'd forgotten about that still
Yes.
kind of hit me. But knowing how the end kind of is, I was able to pay attention to stuff in the cracks a little bit more.
Yes.
And particularly the relationship between the three detectives. Like I was like, oh, I see. But because you're really, the first time you read an Ellroy book, you're just trying to hold on for dear life. You're like, I want to make sure I get everything right. I want to make sure I know, I could write my own Reddit plot summary if I had to, like you want to be able to do that. And then when you return to them, you're like, oh, there's so much more going on.
He really does make you want to get a big cork board and just start putting bits of yarn and trying to connect everything together, looking like Charlie Day and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And he doesn't get enough credit for being just a straight up like conspiracy schizo, because he got the JFK assassination right, like the real story. Like
Yes.
if you read I don't know if you've read American Tabloid.
I've not yet. Actually, Isaac Simpson from the
Yes.
Carousel
Yeah.
podcast, I had him on to discuss American Pastoral, and he mentioned I should read American Tabloid because my second novel that I wrote was about the Kennedy family.
You would like it. You would like
I'm
it.
I'm sure I would. I've got it. It's one of those things. I'll probably do an episode with Isaac on it if he'll come back.
For sure. No, that book. So what happened with, I don't know if you know this, but like a lot of people don't, and a lot of people come to this point with Ellroy where they pick up that series first, which is not what I would do, because he got a lot of flack for L.A. Confidential. It's long for a crime fiction novel. It's long.
It's a tome.
It's a tome. It is, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of like, whoa, like, does this matter? Are you sure this matters? And it does. It all matters. But he listened to his critics, and then White Jazz, which is the final of the LA Quartet, a lot of people like it. It's not for me. It's my least favorite Ellroy book that I've read so far. But he did that machine gun style that he's known for, where he's chopping sentences in half. And he, on White Jazz, I don't think he quite had it right, and it felt like this like thing when someone says like, you suck at this, so then you like do the thing in their face, like you sure I can't do that? I'll literally make my sentences 2 words, like just to piss you off, like a troll. And then with Tabloid and the Cold 6000, which Cold 6000 in my opinion is better, but American Tabloid's probably more objectively better, but personally for me the Cold 6000 is. But he took that machine gun style, and there's still 700 pages. So it's like they'd be at 1100 if they weren't. But
so the thing that I really appreciate LA Confidential for, and I guess Ellroy more generally, although this is the only work of his that I've read, excited to kind of read more.
Yeah.
Because as you said, his style lends to wanting more.
Oh yeah.
Right. And what I really appreciated about the novel is I don't know everything that happened, and I could probably reread it 5-6 different times and still not know. But I know he knows.
Yeah.
I know he's plotted it out. I know that if I went up to him and asked him a question about Dream of Dreamland, which is for the anybody out there who's listening who hasn't read the book, that's the Disneyland equivalent. Yeah. He would be able to answer all my questions, right? And he respects the reader quite a bit, right?
Yes.
We're going to be jumping to do a plot summary is impossible. Glenn and I were DMing before, and I mentioned like, if we devolve into trying to explain the plot, it's going to be for a terrible episode.
No, the things that are worth discussing in this book. Now, if you want a plot summary, read the book, but there's no shortcut.
Yeah,
but you can't even watch the movie because the movie's not the book. So you literally you can't even like pretend that you did. And when you saw the movie, because you are missing literally like 60% of a major thing that's happening in there. But the thing about that's worth discussing, and I would imagine you feel the same, is I've read Stephen Powell's biography of James Ellroy, Love Me, Fierce and Danger. I recommend that to everybody. I actually like it more than My Dark Places, which is the story, his nonfiction about his mother's murder and trying to solve it. And
I'll have to pick those up.
Yeah, I still like the Stephen Powell one because it really goes into his dope fiend days. Like this dude was just a straight up junkie. Like my guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Jared Klickstein, who's just a fantastic story about a homeless guy from like Skid Row. He's now just writing books and stuff, and he's come on our show a few times, and he's like, Ellroy. When I read about Ellroy, it's kind of the same thing. This guy was huffing Benzedrine out of like weird asthma medication because he was such a junkie.
Mm,
Didn't do anything until he was in his like mid to late 30s. Never kill yourself, by the way, guys.
yeah.
And then you know, dad was a kind of a mess. His mom was murdered. He definitely had some Freudian things going on with his
Yes,
mom
yes,
for
I
sure.
did hear about that.
She was last seen by a car hop at Stan's Chili Dogs, which is where Christine Bergeron and her son, the incest Daryl Bergeron, the incest couple, were at. So it's kind of funny the way he works that in, and LA Confidential. But the that part is worth discussing, and then also just Ellroy dividing his mind into 3 police officers and battling them. You know, having them battle each other is really really cool.
I mentioned this in our DMs, but it's worth noting that of all the characters, of all the major characters, there's a couple people, you know, here and there. Karen Vicenez is probably the most innocent, I'd
Right.
say, of the speaking characters in the book. But of all the major players, I found at least that Mickey Cohen, the Jewish gangster who ran Los Angeles with an iron fist
Uh-huh.
for like 2 decades, maybe even 3, right?
Mhm.
Was the most endearing and most likable character of the book. And that's not a knock on Elroy at all. In fact, I think that's to his credit because he's tapping into. I had this friend in the military who used to say that the police are just another gang,
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
you see Elroy is seeing, especially the LAPD, right? But you're seeing that Elroy is playing with that idea himself, right? Every single one of these guys is corrupt, and if they're not corrupt, they're still these like slimy, self-serving guys. Our closest thing to a hero, uh, Edmund Exley,
Mhm.
is, you know, an opportunist. He gets his fame for being a hero in World War II from an act of cowardice
Yeah.
that he dresses up as heroism.
Uh-huh.
And what's excellent about Exley is he's living in his father's shadow as well as his older brother. Only to find out that his father is no better than he is, and in some ways worse.
Much worse, I would say. Yeah, yeah, I would say much worse. His father didn't give a shit about the truth. Actually, whatever you can say about him, he wants the truth. Like
Right.
he wants the truth. He wants justice. His idea of justice is that if I'm ethical, it doesn't matter who else is. When really it's like, no, you're in the swamp, dude. You got it. You're gonna have to crack a few eggs. You're gonna have to bud white a little bit. And when you learn from Inez and the women in the book is like, well, those women kind of like a guy that just goes in there and cracks someone's skull. You know
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying? Like, and
You know,
Exley's like, and then all of a sudden Exley's killing everybody from the Night Owl up supposedly. You know,
it's yeah, it's Exley is it's like the Virgin Exley versus the Chad White.
but then it flips.
It does
That's
flip.
what's great. It's like the luck of Barry Lyndon. You know what I mean? It's like he passes the torch. That's why it's because Ellroy himself is very much Jack Vincennes, right? And Ellroy's dad was kind of like a grifter you would meet in a Chandler book.
Mm,
Kind of, hey, I'll give you for $100. I'll tell you, you know, where that guy is or something. And he was kind of one of those guys, but he also was Rita Hayworth's manager for a while. And he always like once Elroy's mom's died, and his dad was like far older, like just a really old dad.
mhm.
And so his dad was always had like health issues and stuff. And he used to say, like, yeah, I used to like fuck Rita Hayworth and stuff. And he's like, yeah, yeah, right, dad. You know, like, of course, would say that. And this was when she was like divorcing Orson Welles and marrying the I forget what that guy's name is, the Middle Eastern guy and stuff. And the uh he read Ellroy many years later after his dad's long gone reads a autobiography, the Rita Hayworth autobiography, and that there's a special thing of love for James Ellroy's dad in there. And he's just like, holy shit, maybe the dad's right. So that whole Jack Vincennes arc, his dad was kind of like the Sid Hudgens kind of guy in the book. So and then Jack Vincennes is a dope fiend trying really hard not to relapse, realizing that he kind of needs to get through what he has to do. So Ellroy's fighting that. He has the Exley is the like just the spurgy, like I have to get this right guy, and then Bud White is the I just want to tear everything up.
I just like beating people up.
Just rage, just absolute slam.
He's pure id. If you want to go Freudian psychology, you've got
and I do with Ellroy. That's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, you could do Bud White is the id. You've got Vincennes is Vincennes or Vincennes.
In the audiobook they were saying Vincennes. I was always saying Vincennes when I read it, so I don't.
Anyway, he I guess you would call the super ego, and Exley the ego.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, when you really can break it down that way, because as you mentioned, this is Ellroy sort of splitting himself apart.
Philip K. Dick style. It's like a Philip
K.
Yes,
definitely.
It's his own Philip K. Dick novel. Like, it's crazy.
Better character work than Dick, I will say.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of both, but yeah,
yes,
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. It's like I didn't know anything about Ellroy when I read this the first time. I'd read Black Dahlia, Big Nowhere. Big Nowhere is maybe my favorite book of all time. So that is like and Mickey Cohen. You'll have a different opinion about Mickey Cohen when you
will I? I'll have to. Yeah.
So no, I mean he's still very fun. Like it's
right. But like, I mean, like he's the gangster. He's the bad guy.
Much more brute force by Mickey Cohen in that book. Yeah,
it's easier for him to be kind of light and aloof, I guess, when he's stuck in prison and he can't really do his thing.
Yeah, and he's past his prime. He's way past his prime in LA Confidential. I mean, we're talking. This is he's about 10 years. I can't remember what the timeline is, but yeah. Anyways, I read those 3 in a row, and then I started kind of like, okay, I want to watch. There's a really good documentary. It's free on YouTube. It was a BBC thing called A Feast of Death with James Ellroy, and it's him trying to find his mom. It's kind of the My Dark Places documentary. It actually opens up with a quote of Ellroy saying, "There was a woman who approached me with a cop who said." I forget what it was. It was something about like LA Confidential or something. The movie was out. And she goes, you wrote that book for LA Confidential, or she thought he did the movie. That's like, one of those like old ladies. It's like, oh, you did it's not a book. It is a movie. You did the movie. And so he's already like rolling his eyes. And she says, well, I really loved it. It was so good. And he goes, well, did you read the book? She goes, oh, I didn't know there was a book. He goes, well, get the fuck out of my face. He said, he's just one of those guys. And again, that's not something any of us would say to like a nice old lady. We've all got a weird comment like that where you're just like, okay,
we've all wanted to.
Exactly. And that's where you get the Bud White. That's the Bud White. That's the, I mean, so I learned so much more about him now. And like I said, the little just nuggets, the, mother-son incest stuff that's happening with the Bergerons in there, and a lot of the smut things. And, Ellroy used to break into people's houses just compulsively to just sniff panties and be weird and stuff. Like, he is the criminal and the cop. Like, he's the criminals and the cop. He is the underworld. The underworld is just like when you see those cheap twists in those movies where they're like, actually an autistic kid was dreaming the story the whole time. It's
right.
Like, that's actually Ellroy's doing this with this world, except he wrote it down and it's cool. It's crazy. He's every component of it.
So now you've got me thinking of what's his name, Timmy Westhouse, from St. Elsewhere. He's the kid.
Yes, the ending of that the snow globe thing. Yes, St. Elsewhere, and that there was a really bad movie called Identity with John Cusack.
Oh, I actually liked that movie. That was like one of the first movies I remember seeing as a kid.
Yeah, it's just bad. I just mean like the ending. You're like, really? That was the ending of the thing. It was
right. Yeah,
it was just bad in that. I remember that's the reason it's bad is because you're like, well, where's this going? And then you're like, oh, you're doing this St. Elsewhere. Like, how cool, but yeah, that's what that reminded me of. These when you get to know this author more, and there's still so much I haven't read of him. Like, there's still so much.
He's pretty prolific. And very much one of our guys. from what I've
Oh,
heard.
oh yeah. He's waiting for Bill Clinton to die. He literally switched to a green juice diet to for heart health, stay alive, to outlive Bill Clinton. Because his rule is, obviously for lawsuits, you're not going to write the Bill Clinton book while you're alive. You're going to get Seth Riched, and then
He's got the book ready.
I'm sure it's written. I'm sure it's written, and it's. But he said, I literally want to be able to go on like a book tour and just like salute that son of a bitch's death. And I was like, that book goes hard. Like, so he's our guy. He's one of our guys. Absolutely.
So before we kind of, I don't know. I don't. There's so many ways that I
A
can
lot of
take
stuff,
this.
man. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I guess to introduce the book somewhat. The book takes place in 1950s Los Angeles from the perspective of three police officers. Jack Vincennes, known as Trash Can Jack because he threw a perp into a trash can once. He is, as you said, a recovering dope addict, also an alcoholic.
Oh yeah.
He he's almost a 20-year man by the end. He's about to hit his 20 at the end of the novel.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been at it for quite a while. This book takes place about 8-10 years, right? Timeline is.
Yeah. It starts out at the beginning, and then you get about 4 or 5 years of news clippings that take you to where the book kind of finalizes at.
So you've got Vincennes. He's also the technical advisor to a show called what's the show?
Badge of
Badge
Honor.
of Honor, yes, which is stand-in for the show Dragnet.
Yep.
Which was a big show from the 50s to I think 2004 is the last time they did anything with it.
It was on forever, dude.
Yep, it was a radio play. It was television. They had a couple movies. I think they tried to reboot it a couple times. It was very much every cop show you've ever seen gets its roots from Dragnet, right?
Yeah, I remember an episode of Dragnet where it was a 60s one where it was a bunch of hippies, and like the cops are there, and of course like the room, everything's red in the room, like they've just because hippies just have like a red, it's like red light therapy like room, and then they were like they left that the hippies were doing too much acid and they just left their baby in the bathtub. I was like, whoa, like it's crazy when you go back and watch old Dragnet. It is nuts. But yes, you're right, Jack Vincennes is the Badge of Honor, aka Dragnet. He basically, the show is real because it's about what Jack Vincennes does. However, Jack Vincennes is probably the most superficial cop of all of them.
So what Jack Vincennes does is he works in he starts out in narcotics, usually busting celebrities with token amounts of drugs, whether it's H or marijuana or what have you, right? And what he'll do is he will call Sid Hudgens of the magazine Hush Hush, which LA Confidential gets its name from, pretty much, and they'll make it up so that he is the arresting officer. Hush Hush gets a exclusive about this starlet or this celebrity getting busted, and Jack pockets $50 or something for the night. So he's very much corrupt, but only for his own self-interest. It's a contained sort of corruption, right?
Yeah, and he's it's entertainment, and you realize after a while you're like, it's not actually Jack Vincennes that's supplying on good faith to get these people busted. You realize somebody's got a file on Jack. Jack's not exactly. Many years ago, Jack had a problem, and Jack killed an innocent family in kind of a busted, weird, like kind of dope sting. I think it was. I can't remember what the situation was, but it kind of got brushed away. Internal affairs kind of hit it, or his paperwork, which everybody always makes comments on his paperwork throughout the book, his lack thereof, or fluffing up his paperwork, and didn't show that he killed these two people. But Sid Hudgens, of course, who, as Ellroy expertly peppers in hush hush headlines throughout the book to let you know that hush hush actually knows everything. And they're like, even though they're sensationalizing stuff, they're still more right than the people investigating the case.
Right. It's like National Enquirer almost.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever watched the Men in Black films?
Yep.
You had Tommy Lee Jones go to the newsstand and get National Enquirer to get the real news.
That's so fun. That's right. That's right.
Or people are saying like, well, Alex Jones is more right than wrong these days. Uh,
Right.
it's, if that's your thing. I've got opinions about Mr. Jones, but
No, I
who
mean,
doesn't these days?
again, is he more correct than Rachel Maddow? I don't care what your
Oh,
opinion is.
totally. Yeah,
You're like if you're comparing him to the people that want to censor him,
Now, and that's a fair point.
Yeah, yeah.
He's definitely he's more right than wrong. We'll say.
Yeah, like I'll put you this way: if they had their way, we'd be in the same camps with them.
That's true. And you know what? I'm gonna wake up one day and I'm gonna be in a FEMA camp, and I'll say, all right, well, Alex Jones got everything right. Crap.
Yeah, exactly. I think about that a lot, where I'm just like, I might not like that guy, but I'm pretty sure our enemies think we're exactly the same, and maybe that's why I don't like that guy. It's just that.
Me, Alex Jones, and Ben Shapiro are sharing
Yeah,
a triple bunk in the FEMA camp
yeah.
because we're all guilty of the same crime of
And
being
then
not
they start
left enough.
shooting, and this is the new Three Stooges, by the way, that they're making. It's you three guys.
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, you're right. With Vincennes, the second go around, I really paid most attention to him because I felt like
Mhm.
I remember the Exley and White stuff is kind of the stuff that stays
He
with
felt the most third wheelish.
me. And he is. And he is. He's I mean, you realize he's not really a strong arm guy. He can only do it when he's doped up. Like he can only
Right, yeah,
really,
he that's his superpower.
yeah, and that's why
He
he's
is
fighting that the
Popeye
whole.
with the spinach. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's fighting that the whole time, and you see these decay as all of these people are trying to live a good life, right? They're trying to kind of be regular cops. There's regular corruption where it's just like, the boys get drunk and horse around, whatever. It's no big deal. There's some guys get tips, they have snitches. It's kind of like this basic cop stuff. But then you realize as it's devolving, and you start peeling back the layers and finding what really is happening, what's building LA, what LA is running on, good and bad, is makes all of these guys have to leave this facade of self-improvement and stoicism or whatever it is that they do. They have to throw that away, or else they're not going to make it.
And the thing about Vincennes is he has well, no, they all have their own arc, but I'd say that especially because his arc is cut short. We're going to do spoilers. It's impossible not to when
Yeah,
talking about this book, and I've trained my audience at this point to
it
expect
came out
spoilers.
the year I was born. You guys have had plenty of time. Yeah.
So Vincennes gets pretty he gets like 2 lines devoted to his death.
Yeah.
He's shot in the face and he's left on the train tracks, and the bad guys kind of walk over him, and that's about it. Very ignoble death for one of our main characters.
Yeah, and he also just, to be honest though, what was, the first time that happened, I was like, damn, I wanted Jack to, go swoop up his lady and move. Like they
Oh,
kept.
he really did. Ellroy perfected the "I was 3 days away from retirement" trope.
Exactly. And I was gonna say that's such a trope, but in a book that's really not tropish. Like it actually is so anti-trope. It's kind of wholesome when
Hmm.
when he sneaks like a real cop movie trope in there where like what's the To Live and Die in LA Friedkin movie, like the guy's like, I'm gonna retire tomorrow, let's have some beers, and then he's busting through Willem Dafoe's trash can and gets shot, and you're like, obviously that's gonna happen. But there's all this stuff where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to retire. I'm going to double dip. I'm going to go be in, like, I forget what it is, Arizona or something. Or I can't remember where they're going to go, to some smaller town outside
I
LA.
think they were going to go to Hawaii.
Was that it? Okay.
Yeah, they were going to take a trip because I just finished it yesterday.
Okay. Yeah.
And Karen leaves him out his
Mm,
clothes for the day, and she packs him a Hawaiian shirt
that's
for the day,
right.
and he
That's
wears
right.
that to work. So he dies in a Hawaiian shirt, which goals.
Jimmy
Uh,
Buffett, dude. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's the way
and
to
it's
do it.
just like, oh damn. It does feel earned though, because as you said, it's so anti-trope the rest of the book. It's
Yeah.
it's it's so trying to mess with your expectations and trying to just be a class above those lesser crutches that other writers might rely on.
It's so true. Yeah, and Vincennes, I just that scene of Vincennes when he's I forget what it is, when he gets the brandy splashed in his face by the smut peddler people, when he's just figuring out um kind of that there's just, he doesn't know how deep the smut ring is or anything, but he realizes he falls in love with this smut, this like kind of this Thomas Harris type of love of Hannibal Lecter serial killer stuff. He is investigating the smut but can't stop looking at it,
Right, and
can't get off.
he becomes obsessed with the starlets,
Yeah.
the plastic surgery altered prostitutes who
Hmm.
are turned into celebrities.
Yeah, and it's
And
and
he
he
becomes obsessed with it, and it like wrecks his marriage.
mhm.
He falls off the wagon because of it. Uh,
That scene when he's confessing, like all the
right.
stuff he did and his wife is hearing it, it's rough, dude.
But it's so good because she then like, she actually
Yeah.
uh, is more loyal. She loves him more because of it.
Yeah, and
It's
yeah, with that scene where he gets the brandy splashed in his face as like a diversion tactic, where the guy runs away from him. I believe I can't remember, I think it's Bobby Inge, I believe,
right, right.
and he runs away, and he's like, one thing Elroy does is alcohol never sounds good in any of his books. Like it never
No,
does. Because he has a poor relationship with all that stuff. But it's you'll be reading other novels and you're like, oh man, that sounds nice, like it sounds real, having a little glass of something, like, oh, it sounds great. But in his way, it's like you can still smell the alcohol, he could still taste it, he could still feel it as he was driving, and then when he finally buckles down and relapses and breaks into the bathroom stall, and it's kind of like a Jack Torrance Shining situation where he goes like full schizo, and
I will murder whoever I have to get another drink.
yeah, and he says Jack's back and takes the 5 rolls of Benzedrine. It's great. I mean, it's I kind of, that's the part about I hate Jack Vincennes' movie stuff more than any of the other characters, because I'm like, I feel like that's not that hard to work in that sobriety arc.
No, definitely not. And
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Spacey is a great actor.
He's a great cast for it. I thought he was a great cast. Yeah.
Whatever else he is, he's a great actor. And yeah, I would say, especially the sliminess
Mm-hmm.
of Vincennes, I think he really popped that in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his demons could have been a little. They could have easily put that in the film, and I think it would
relapse.
have
Have him relapse. Like I don't understand why that you literally could have put. Maybe it got cut. You never know. It's already maybe it was supposed to be a 3-hour movie, and they had to chop a bunch of it up. But I'm like the bathroom scene where he's just starts robbing known junkies for like Benzedrine just so he can get. That's amazing. Like that's top tier stuff. And in the book, I was like, man, I forgot how cool his plot line is in this novel, especially the like the typical like almost Jimmy Stewart like noir of him like following everybody, and not sure what he's looking at. Jimmy Stewart Vertigo, kind of like not really sure what he's seeing. I really love the tone of that. And then the gosh, is it Lamar Hinton, the guy working on the telephone pole?
Mm-hmm.
That scene with him, I just love that Vincennes is like, he's kind of ghetto. Like he knows how to he knows how to talk to like the scum of the earth.
Right.
More than any of the other guys
because
do.
he is them.
Exactly.
He's them with the badge.
And that's Ellroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and what I really so Vincennes is also you can tell that at one point he was probably a pretty decent detective.
Oh yeah.
And his habit caught up to him. It ruined him. So he's been playing it safe ever since. And towards the end of the book, you see him sort of stretching those muscles and flexing them a bit in a way that he hasn't in a long time. So it's new to him, but you can tell that he's treading on somewhat familiar ground.
He does a lot of the piecing together, a lot more than I remember when I read it the first time. Like towards the end, a lot of the piecing together of the final story, before Exley, of course, has his moment at the end. A lot of that's done by Jack Vincennes. Because Bud White's trying to like hide half of it, but Jack Vincennes is obviously, he's screwed. He's relapsed so hard. He's assaulted the DA, which the DA gets his, of course, but
Right.
the
That's just a, family quarrel between in-laws.
yeah, he's made, there's all this crazy stuff, throwing the drink in the DA's face, which is a nice callback to the guy throwing the drink in his face, and he's just blackout shooting people and stuff, and right then and there, he has written his death sentence. Like, there isn't a positive ending for him because, like, he got clean, but you just know that demon's in him like the whole time. Like, it's so hard for him to suppress that. And, for him going out the way that he did, it's a very Cormac McCarthy death.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, like, very like, the scenery gets more description than what happens to his, his
You
head.
could almost, it does remind me very much of Llewellyn Moss's death in
Exactly.
No
Yeah.
Country for Old Men, where it's almost an afterthought.
It's almost an afterthought, but I think just his arc, it's like, it kind of is. At this time, I was less sad. I was kind of like, oh man, like that's actually kind of like beautiful the way he went.
It's almost better than what it would have been.
Because he went out because Karen loved him. Because imagine if he ruined his marriage again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if he did that again. You realize this is a guy that, like, was just always a hairpin away from, like, just spiraling all the time.
Very much. He could have easily become Stens.
And that's another thing you bring up that's great. There's all these older cops that clearly are examples of what you become.
Yeah,
as a cop in here.
They are ruined.
Dick Stens, was it Mal Lunsford? All these other guys that were former cops. I mean, Dudley Smith. You could even say Dudley Smith.
Yeah,
if you're smart enough. Exley's the only person that could become Dudley Smith, but he is reminded all the time where it's like, hey, if you want to be as old as me and as powerful as you are, you kind of have to do this.
And I remember when I first started reading it, I was unaware of his other works, and just having Dudley Smith kill one of the main characters from, what was it, Black Dahlia?
I don't know if he's in Black Dahlia, but he's massive in The Big Nowhere.
That's it. Yeah,
The Big Nowhere. Buzz Meeks, he's which is in the movie, they do the worst thing in the way. It's probably the worst part about the movie is how they make Buzz Meeks totally what he's not. It's so unnecessary. But yes, that's the opening of the book, is Buzz Meeks thinking he got away. He basically takes the Big Nowhere ending and just goes like, oh, by the way,
so just in case you thought there was a happy ending.
You did have a happy ending if you stopped there. If you want to keep going, you're going to even forget about, by the time you get the end of this book, but you're going to forget what even happened. But we're setting the scene.
I think we pretty well covered Vincennes.
Agreed.
Let's move to Edmund Exley, the son of a famed LA detective, Preston Exley, who made his name solving the Frankenstein murders. Right, a big serial killer story in early Los Angeles. I think this was the 30s at the time.
Yeah.
Most famous because a child star actor at Dream of Dreamland, which is the Disney World equivalent, or rather, the Disney Studios. Let's say Dream of Dreamland,
Mickey Mouse Club, like the Mickey Mouse Club.
Right.
Essentially, these kids.
He's captured and is killed by the killers, and Preston Exley. We originally are led to believe that he is like this tough, nose to the grindstone detective. Really, he just kind of lucked out. He happened to meet Raymond Dieterling.
Yes. So it's Preston Exley and Raymond Dieterling. Raymond Dieterling is Walt Disney.
Yeah, he's Walt Disney. Dieterling basically sets it up that his son, Paul Dieterling, is the murderer. Not actually. So it's really convoluted, and I didn't quite get it.
Oh, I got it. It's crazy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so what happened in that was, Dieterling did not like Paul.
Right.
He liked his illegitimate son. Like the whole thing is like, man, maybe Raymond Dieterling's a freak. And you can look at Walt Disney if you're into like, super occult stuff, like Walt Disney's dealings with the occult is kind of interesting. And I was like, I wonder if Ellroy knew that stuff, because that's interesting.
Well, and finish what you were going to say, but I'd love to. One thing I love about the show is doing tangents, so feel free to go into that.
Yeah, I don't. It's Art of Darkness is where you would go for that on the archive. They've talked about that a few times.
Oh, have they? All right, I'll have to go look
Yeah,
into that.
I'm for me, I to explain the actual dealings with it, I just know that there's stuff there, and I just wonder if Ellroy knew that there was stuff there too. It's very interesting because you get into like a very odd child sacrifice thing towards the end. Very True Detective. I mean, you could see the seeds being laid for like True Detective, and
Well, then go check out AOD. I know I will.
yeah, those are the boys over there. But then the so Paul was the kid that he never liked. He felt he was like kind of a money grubbing, like, and almost kind of this guy who didn't really want an heir. He wanted to take care of things for the rest of his life. He was he, as a father, he didn't really want the Baron Trump, he didn't want he didn't want his next in line. He didn't want that,
very
like,
very boomer mentality, actually.
exactly. I want my kids to be functionally retarded, like, so they can live with me until they're 47 and I can gripe about them, like, just kind of this thing, because he had an illegitimate relationship with this woman who was a schizophrenic, essentially, and so, but he always loved that kid. Now that kid was being shown porn. And I won't get into the details of how the porn is made, because that involves characters we haven't even brought up yet and stuff. But he's showing this kid like porn and just like these really odd cartoons made by Raymond Dieterling before he was a super big star, before he was Walt Disney level
So
famous.
for all those deviant artists
Yeah,
out there, maybe you too can make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, that's such a terrible sentence to say out loud.
Never kill yourself. That's what this book is. And there's Ellroy's an example of it, and so is Raymond Dieterling in a way. But he doesn't take that advice towards the end, I guess. But so Paul and this illegitimate child for a while looked identical, because they were Ray Dieterling's genes were so strong. Now, Lauren Atherton, who is, in the papers known as the Frankenstein killer, murderer person, has already been killed for this crime, has already gone to the gas chamber, wanted the credit for all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he had met up with this illegitimate child who had been shown, basically snuff porn his whole life, from a schizophrenic mom who would drink laudanum and like show him like sex and stuff. Again, Ellroy's mom stuff all pops in there. And basically the way the murder happens, and there's this Wee Willie, whatever the kid's name is, Winterholm. Wee Willie Winterholm is killed, and that's like kind of the big thing. And they're trying to make the Lauren Atherton teams up with Paul. Sorry, I'm already getting it wrong. Douglas, who is the illegitimate child of Ray Dieterling. They hook up on Skid Row, and they decide they both are attracted to children and like to make weird art out of gross child murders. It's really revolting, actually. That
was a tough part of the book.
It's tough. It's really bad. It's like, it's crazy. But at the end of the day, it is kind of why you're still there reading it. You're like, wow, this is you're kind of, there's a Lovecraftian pull that's happening there.
Right.
And he so what's reported is that someone says Lauren Atherton wasn't the only person there that killed this kid. They wanted a face for this weird flying child that they were making, these two murder people. So obviously they take the pretty kid from the Disney Channel, essentially, or whatever, the Disney Mickey Mouse Club, and they sacrifice him and put a like face on it. It's really gross.
Yeah, but they build a composite perfect
with wings because Douglas, the illegitimate child, is obsessed with flight, and the other one's obsessed with just murdering kids and molesting kids. So they're what a team. And they Kobe and Shaq, basically. It's just crazy. And these
peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, they're just crazy. So what happens is that the police are fine. Dieterling's fine, and Exley and him have had correspondence, because Preston Exley is I forget what he is, police captain. I never know the job titles, but he's a high up at the police thing, and he basically says, it's Lauren Atherton, right? Yep, we got it. Case closed. That's fine. Similar to what's happening with the Night Owl, right? The way the Night Owl's being
It's like,
solved.
yeah, we need this
Just these
wrapped
three.
up.
Yeah, we got our guys. They died. Case closed. That's it. Don't look any further into this. So, but there was one person that said, hey, at the school where that kid was abducted, I saw Paul Dieterling, Paul being the normal son of Ray Dieterling that Ray does not like. It was not Ray Dieterling, or it was not Paul Dieterling. It was the illegitimate child who looked just like him. So what they do is, well, while that news gets out, they're like, we can't have this become a thing. So they have Paul Dieterling is killed, but
So the way I read it,
the way it's killed is by Preston Exley being lied to and saying,
right.
this kid is a part of this investigation. You're fucked if it means you did a bad job. Basically, if this comes to light that you didn't arrest the wrong guy, but didn't arrest the whole team, there's still a child murderer and abductor on the loose. So Preston actually takes him camping, and they drug him and shoot him in the head. And so that then they say, oh, well, Paul Dieterling died in an avalanche. How sad. So this guy sacrificed his own son that he never liked for this pet project, disgusting freak kid.
Yeah, and that's what Preston Exley, major prick.
Not a good guy. Not a good guy.
But he himself falls into his own bullshit. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He totally wants to believe that he was working for the greater good, that justice was served when he killed Paul Dieterling. And that's what makes his end, because he ends up committing suicide with Dieterling and actually a young woman named Inez Soto, who we haven't brought up yet.
Oh, that'll be with the Edmund Exley stuff, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they end up killing themselves because of the lies that they've been living. Yeah, Preston Exley, not a good guy, but also kind of a victim of his own, I guess, yeah, his own hubris, really.
And he's also not in charge. He's not in charge. And you know, he's not technically in charge. Ray Dieterling architected the whole thing. He's the architect of you know, the reason we're watching LA getting built into what we know LA is today. They're building the freeways, they're building Disney World. You know, it's not just Jake Giddy's in Chinatown. Like, this is we're past that at this point. This is a fully industrial city, and there's a lot of people that go, it's kind of got this Blood Meridian kind of tone to it.
I'm really glad you brought up
where I wrote that down in my thing, because I hadn't read Blood Meridian at the time when I read this book the first time. So it's basically, do you want progress? And I say, I don't mean progress, blue hair, pronoun, like that's right. Do you want progress? Do you want
progress
innovation?
Of civilization?
Do you want innovation? Do you understand how that gets installed? Like, do you like hamburgers? Do you want to unless you want to watch the cow get killed, just turn away and eat your damn hamburger.
Right.
That's kind of what's happening in this. And even Preston Exley's not immune to that. Even like all these people, because Dieterling is like, look, he probably didn't feel too bad. He's like, look, I killed a kid that killed a child murder. It was a child murder. I killed the kid. Case closed. Even if I'm lying to people on how the case was solved, I still killed a child murder. Who cares?
Right. I still like justice was still done.
Right. It's like Exley with the Night Owl. It's like Edmund Exley with the Night Owl. It's the same thing. If I get
to profit from it, you know, big whoop, you know, whatever. Like, that's just a bonus.
And his son goes through the same exact thing.
Yes.
His son goes through the same thing with, obviously it's really not even as bad as his dad, but at the time it's, you know, Inez Soto is raped by 3, you know, African-American gentlemen. Ellroy uses different words throughout the book. I don't think he says African-American once, actually. And so it's the book is the colorful language.
I think we can say Negroes, right? That's just a term.
Black, but yeah.
Black guys, yeah.
So it's 3 black guys, 4, whatever. There's a lot. So it's even though Exley thinks there might be more to it, these black dudes escape after being questioned and like grilled into basically admitting they did something, because even under Exley's questioning that can't happen. But Exley is so mad and frankly emasculated by Bud White, and says, fuck this, I know where these people escaped to, and he just kills all of them. And so you later realize that this book is a lot about genetics. I mean, there's a lot of genetic stuff. Even with Bud White, there's a lot of genetic things, like genetic suppression. Really, it's like how much of my dad am I?
Right.
You know,
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Edmund Exley also, yeah. So he has this thing with Inez Soto, the rape victim, uh, where he wants to take care of her, but also doesn't want to be seen in public with her.
Right.
He's too respectable for that,
It's the
and
50s in LA. You just that wasn't what you did when you were a high ranking official. You weren't palling around with next
and
girls.
she wants to use him, and she'll live in his house, she'll spend his money, but she wants to get fucked, and she goes to Bud White for that.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's rough. It's
yeah,
rough.
it's
It's
like it's literally alpha fucks beta bucks. It's for all you uh manosphere guys out there. Actually, I'm glad I brought that up because in the film, the name Rollo Tomasi is created.
yeah, what
Uh,
is that? I that
I
I
had
don't
no idea. Yeah,
oh,
I thought for sure that I would find that in the book and there'd be some sort of explanation, but no, it's a complete creation of the film in order to help pare down a few of the plot points.
it's so strange.
And then it is used by an internet celebrity. That's his nom de guerre these days.
That's crazy. Yeah. Good
Very
for him.
very interesting stuff.
Yeah, I see. I didn't even know that it was that. Like, I was like, "What is this name?" Like, I mean, you said something, and I watched the movie earlier today, and I was like, "Where's that name coming from?" So there you
Yeah,
go.
it's a creation of the scriptwriter,
Yeah, but
and
I will say the first time I read L.A. Confidential, I immediately wanted to go actually nerd, like
yeah,
after
oh
the
totally, yeah,
but
yeah,
but knowing how it ended when I was reading it this time, I was like, oh shit, he's just naive. He's just naive. And so much of it is, there's that first scene with his dad, Preston Exley, where they're toasting and they're saying, like, I want to be this, I want to be that. And he says, well, you're gonna plant dope on somebody that is a kitty raper, or like a
right, right.
whatever, something like that. Like, just
What are
because
you prepared to do?
because Exley wants to do you don't have to roll your police, we have rights as civilians, we don't. He's like, yeah, see how long that lasts you out in the field, see how long that lasts you when you're wasting 60 days on something, when the guy did it, you're going to waste 60 days of police budget and have newspapers have hush hush knowing the real answer, saying all this. You're going to fold like everybody else. Everybody tells him that, which sucks, right? Like, you feel for somebody who knows how to do a job really well but doesn't know how to play the game. And you always want to know, how much do I have to play the game? And the answer is a lot. You'll be at a job, right? Say you're at a job and they hire a manager who's like by the book. And even if the book's not that bad, you're like, yeah, but we do this thing this way, and it's like the way we get it done. And they're like, no, we're by the book. You're like, dude, come on.
Right, it's
You
like,
know?
yeah,
Like,
and that itself has become a trope, right? I
right.
think Beverly Hills Cop,
Yeah.
right, where Eddie Murphy comes in from big bad Detroit and shows the two the two Beverly Hills detectives how real police work is done, right?
Exactly.
Uh, and I'm thinking about Exley, played by Guy Pearce in the movie, who I love Guy Pearce.
He's great.
I can't. I think I said this to you as well. I can't believe he wasn't a bigger star. Uh,
He picked some dumb roles in the 2000s. I know The Time Machine was a huge flop. I didn't mind that movie, but
I
that one. I remember his career really kind of nosediving after that.
him as the villain in Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh yeah,
One of my favorites. Definitely, like that's in my top 5 films ever.
interesting.
Even though apparently a lot of people don't like it. I watched that before I read the book.
Mm,
I wasn't a I have I'm pretty
me too.
recently literate.
Yeah, me too.
I was always a film guy. So getting to read
Hmm.
The Count of Monte Cristo and seeing all the parts that I liked in the film and then only more so. I think that's really the way that you got to be. People say, "Oh, read the book first."
Yeah,
No. Watch the film first because the book's almost always better
and different
and
too.
and
Like, a lot
yeah,
sometimes just completely different.
and you're going to appreciate them more if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No,
You're
I,
gonna
I I completely agree. I completely agree. And with Exley, he's this, like, he's Guy Pearce's guy. He's actually in a really good Western Western called The Proposition. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen it. I'll have to, though.
Fantastic movie, by John Hillcoat, who apparently is doing Blood Meridian, and I didn't want them to do a Blood Meridian movie, but I will say, if anybody that's gonna do it, I watched The Proposition. I'm like, okay, this guy can do it if they go all the way.
Yeah, I was thinking him, or who's the Yellowstone douchebag?
Oh, Taylor Sheridan, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
didn't he do Wind River?
I haven't seen that.
I think it was Wind River. He did some. He wrote Sicario, right?
Oh, okay. So that's a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So but and that really, that in and of itself is a modern Western.
It is.
So he gets it, right? And even I really liked the first episode of Yellowstone, and then
I've never seen it.
It fell apart. You could watch the first episode. It's basically The Godfather, but a Western. It's set in modern day Montana for ranchers. Great piece of TV. The rest you can kind of do without.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
So the guy knows how to write. So I would trust him to write a script for Blood Meridian. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think what I meant was Hillcoat being the director will be the director of, and he did this movie, The Proposition, with Guy Pearce. It's really just gross, and there's flies everywhere, and it's like one of those like it's in Australia during Australia's colonization, essentially, and it's off the hook. It's really good. It's with Guy Pearce is the main guy, and I think it was the guy's name Nick Houston. He's the villain, or whatever, the brother in it. It's that's highly recommend checking that movie out. And but yeah, anyways, I guess Guy Pearce is at Exley, but Exley himself in the book, you feel for him a lot, because it's just he's literally doing his job. He's smarter than everybody. The problem is like, if you're the high IQ guy in the room full of brute force people, they're gonna win. And you learn that from the Christmas Day beating up the Mexican guy thing. Right. You learn that right away, where it's like, so you're gonna rat all of us out. And then all of a sudden, Exley knows. He's like, nah, I can only take a few people down. Let's take the old guys down. This old,
right? Yeah, he's like, all right, let's force some of these guys to retire, and immediately, because White emasculates him, even then, he has a certain vendetta against White and Stenz, and this gets Stenz sent to prison, pretty much ruins his life. And puts him on a path to the electric chair, right?
Yeah.
But also creates this huge animosity between White and Exley that really doesn't even get solved so much as they come to an understanding towards the end.
That's an interesting. They are interesting foils. That you're right.
Especially because they become involved with the same two women.
Same two. Yeah, exactly. In reverse orders. It's they are Eskimo brothers. I mean, that is
they are double Eskimo brothers, and then you've got the end, which is just perfect, where Exley takes credit for solving the crimes, right? The LAPD, of course, isn't going to let the main villain, Dudley Smith, is basically running the Los Angeles underground for Mickey Cohen.
Yes.
Because Cohen's in prison, and basically he is trying to be the devil that everyone knows, rather than the chaos of a devil that no one knows. Right.
Yep. Exactly.
That's at least his justification for this.
Mm-hmm.
Exley swears that he's going to get Smith, right? Bud White is, from the last fight, Bud White is pretty horribly incapacitated. He's broken this, contusion that, right? He's in rough shape, and he's gonna escape to Arizona, and we'll get to Bud White's story in a minute. But I'm just setting this up because it's such a perfect ending. You've got the main femme fatale, Lynn Bracken, yes, who apparently is a dead ringer for Veronica Lake. She sleeps with Exley because she's told to. She's a former prostitute, but she loves Bud White.
Yep.
Right, and they're gonna ride off into the sunset together. Exley says to Bracken, "Was there ever a chance for us?" Right, and she says something like, I just have to pull it up because it's such a perfect line. Hold on, I got my copy right here. Some men get the world, some men get ex-hookers and a trip to Arizona.
Yeah.
You're in with the former, but my God, I don't envy you the blood on your conscience.
Yeah.
And then the final two lines of the book, a little bit later down the paragraph. Gold stars, alone with his dead.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
that's Edmund Exley.
Yeah, that's Edmund Exley. I think that his I think I love when he finally works his way to Lynn Bracken too. He is kind of a bit more alpha, as when he's with Inez Soto, it's oh, I'm sorry, man, I just want to be nice to you.
He's like treating her like a wounded animal.
Yeah. Whereas Lynn Bracken, he's like, shut up, shut up, you're nothing, this is, and then of course, even though Lynn Bracken is told to, sleep with him, you can't say it didn't work a little bit, on Lynn. Like it's
right.
There's a little something to it, and
right. Most of that though, it's almost just a reminder of Bud White.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and Exley has to keep his eye on the prize because he's the star. He is the star. He's supposed to be his dad's eventually going to try to be the California governor. But Exley is supposed to be chief of police. He's supposed to be the DA. At some point, he's supposed to take over. He's this high, quick riser. He had the highest score out of the police academy, but he had a brother who died in his first week on the job or something.
Right,
who also had really high marks.
Very Fredo.
But you think about it, right? With the two fought with Dieterling and Exley. Exley had a son he liked more that died. But also Dieterling had a son he liked more. He had a son that he liked more that he kept alive. And sacrificed his other one. There's the constant like picking between two sons. And Exley just constantly has this. I need to beat my father. I need to beat Bud White. But I do that by hyperfixating on the night owl. I cannot have any loose ends. I can't have this pop up 10 years from now and bite me in the ass because that happened to my dad. I need to be better than it's really relatable when you're an obsessive like that, but you're an obsessive with an opponent. Like you feed off of like negative energy, even if that energy isn't even as strong as you think it is, which in Exley's case, it's actually worse than he thinks.
Right.
But, in a lot of our lives, it's kind of like
we don't have rivals or nemesis.
No, not even close. But you'll see somebody who doesn't really think much of you. They're not that consequential, but you still like, well, I need to pull something off that energy. So I, in the morning I work harder at this or whatever. And that's kind of how Exley goes. And then with another thing with Exley is you realize he's alone at the end of the novel. He's alone. He's completely alone at the end of it. And you notice this, and I hate to this is such a kind of a hack literary pod thing to do, especially from our side, but I can't help but do it. This is my Ellroy sneak a trope in at the end kind of thing. You realize like in like 2020 when you played the game or something with all these friends, or 2016, whenever you had a schism with your friends, if you were ever open about your politics, open about your beliefs, open about what you thought viruses were, masks, any of these things, if you did that, you were like, is this person worth like being in my life anymore? Because I can't have both. I can't have my integrity and that person like me, and Exley's just kind of like, fuck that. I'll be alone then. And I am not alone right now. I'm married, but there's a lot of people that don't talk to me anymore. And I made that choice because I didn't want to be on a job interview for the rest of my life with my quote unquote friends.
No, that's a good point. And it's funny that you say that because in some ways I am the opposite of that. I try not to talk politics with friends, but I've been known as quote unquote a good one, right?
I see.
All my friends know that I'm right leaning, right? But they're like, oh yeah, but you're not one of them, right? Even though I let my usually it's I can make it sound really funny in a joke.
I see. Downplay it a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah, I when I have let some of my more I can't even say extreme because some of this stuff is just really normal stuff.
Right.
When I've let that slip a little bit, it's like, whoa, hey there, partner.
Stuff with extreme connotation for today, basically.
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the calculus I've done is, well, I value my friendship with person X more than I say random political thing that doesn't matter
Uh,
for now.
for now, but the
Right, right.
problem is when they get in that mode, you become sacrificed. Not saying it's going to happen to you. I just mean, like, at the end of the day, Exley didn't have that. If Exley was going to be the politician, grease everybody's palms, make sure everybody
Hmm.
was happy, eventually somebody was
If
going to
he was
view
going to
him as
become Dudley Smith, yeah.
exactly. And then it's first off, Dudley had to play it perfectly to even get as far as he did. It's like there's just no room for error in that life. And for me, I'm just too outspoken. I'm sure everybody could tell if this is the first time they're hearing me. I'm very outspoken and I'm very talkative. So I can't do it. I just I just say
I
it.
don't know.
And
It might just be because I went to a more well known college. I'll put it there,
I
that I
see.
learned how to play the game very
Sure.
well.
Yeah. No,
And
I wish I played it better.
yeah, no, fair enough.
There's the grass is always greener. I'm like, no, I do. I said all that, and I was like, I should have played just a little harder. Like a little, I should have put in a little more effort, you know. But that's the Exley mentality. He's like trying to save his dad for the long time, where he's like, okay, I'm not going to get my dad. I want to know the answer by getting my dad involved, but I don't want to take him down. But then he finds the answer, and he's like, no, fuck both of you guys. Like, you guys are awful. Like,
It's like, and it's like, you've been holding this over my head my entire life,
right.
and for nothing, right? In fact, only because you just preferred my brother to me.
Which I can't change. It doesn't matter what I do. I could become the DA by 40, quicker than anybody's ever done it or whatever. I could do any of this stuff. It doesn't matter. And you think about Paul Dieterling, right? He never got that moment to reflect as a character because he was just killed on a camping trip. But he could. Who was the guy he was supposed to be? A weird, like, feral murderer?
Serial killer,
Yeah, like,
yeah, just but also just like kind of a neat that just kind of stays at home and
yeah,
like
and
just
goon. And
squanders the
I mean,
inheritance.
he goons effectively. He's a goon. He's a gooner.
Right,
So
right.
I mean, one way or another. Not the a bit different in terms of mediums, but what I really I'm a very kind of I'm a very Exley person. I'm not the achiever that he was as far as
No, definitely
being
not.
astute or any of that. I was, but I'm not. I'm always constantly in the back of my mind trying to prove somebody wrong that, to be honest, can't be proven wrong. Not because of anything I did, just because of their view of me, which I can't change.
And now that we kind of bring that up, I think it's unfortunate, but I think I'm more Vincennes,
Tell
which
me how. What the hell? Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I've just I've struggled with a not a drinking problem, but definitely I have to keep an eye on it,
I
sort
see.
of thing,
Of course, yeah.
and it's tough, and I could definitely see it ruining my marriage. I could definitely seeing it ruin
Interesting.
my life,
Yeah.
and
And
at the same time, it's like I so wanted him to have a happy ending.
yeah. And I would argue I wouldn't say he did because it's like obviously he died. Like it
But
sucks.
he got a better ending than he probably
Yeah. I feel like there was
deserved.
a worse. I feel like there was a worse last chapter that he was spared from. Is what I
Right,
guess I'll
right, right.
say.
Oh, yeah, and it's like, he was riding the roller coaster and the ride stopped early before it really, like,
Yeah.
went dark
Derailed.
and deep
Yeah.
and bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. No, again, you'll see a lot of these people, and there are a lot of Bud Whites out there, like there's a lot of people like that are just brute force, but for me with Exley, I just felt so much sympathy for him throughout the book. And it's not to say he's infallible. He's very
Oh, and he's a
fallible.
he's a complete douche.
Yeah, he's a douche. The problem is it's like, especially for the first part of the book, it's just like, dude, like this is such about male camaraderie, and he's just he's not a
He's a
guy that
stick in the
values.
mud.
Yeah,
He's not like you would expect. He was definitely the same way in his unit in World War II.
yeah,
You know, like it doesn't say much about that. only that he was the runner, so he was always away from the unit, and everybody was probably glad that he was. And then they end up all dying.
Yeah.
And he kind of uses that moment to, to forward his own career.
Yeah.
He butchers a bunch of already dead Japanese and then burns them with a flamethrower, like he's Audie Murphy or something.
Exactly. And that's what got him in the paper. That's what got him in the before that he was kind of Thomas Exley's kind of, cool, nice young man. Of course, this brother of Thomas Exley, but he's not Thomas Exley. And then, that's how you breed monsters sometimes. And Exley has that moment where he snaps, right? Where he I don't care what you guys did, I'm gonna kill you. And he like blacks out and he kind of hates himself for it, for
Right.
blacking out because he pulled a Bud White. He pulled a Bud White. Bud White does the exact opposite. He blacks out and he's there for he's there for brute force and nothing else. And Exley's just like, well, this isn't me. And they're like, well, forget it, kid. This is like your big break. Like, whatever happens, if we just close this case right here, it doesn't matter. The show goes on. Pierce Patchett's still pushing his dope. All of this, the world is running on the way it is. But then Exley realized, he's like, no, I just hate the world. Like, I reject the framework of the world. Like, I don't. And how many of us are in a situation of that right now, where we're just like, actually, I'm not to get political, but people will be like, well, what if we put all these tariffs on China? Think what's going to happen to our economy? I'm like, well, I hate our economy.
Yeah, it's like, no, actually crash it. Like, good.
Yeah.
No, this thing that
Yeah.
we've built up is so corrosive and so soul crushing that the alternative has to be better.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Even if the alternative is like hell on earth, it's at least it's you can maneuver in that.
yeah,
The destroying the panopticon that is our society right now. It's going to be painful, but it's going to be worth it.
yeah, and I guess what I'm saying, when the first time I read this, I viewed Bud White as the accelerationist. However, Exley is the accelerationist when you think about it. Like, he's the one that's he is ushering in basically the collapse of the LA underworld in a sense. And yeah, there'll probably be a new one. Guess what? There's a fourth book in the quartet. There is a new one, but it's this he and Bud White is this guy that is very status quo. There will always be a Bud White.
So before we move to Bud White, I did want to mention two things. Right?
Yeah, sure.
One, did you ever see that Ryan Gosling, Josh Brolin film Gangster Squad?
No, I didn't. I know the film, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's about this time period, and it's about Nick Nolte plays Chief Parker, and it's about how the LAPD kind of militarized itself and use these police officers to go outside the law, to bring down Mickey Cohen.
Sounds cool.
Fine. I wanted it. I desperately wanted it to be like The Untouchables, and it hits all those notes, but just like it's like, oh, we have Untouchables at home.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
I hear you. Yeah,
but yeah, that's just kind of worth bringing up, I guess. You can watch it and be like, Hudson, what the hell did you make me watch?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like it really, and there is like a Western aspect to it, because you have like this old time LAPD guy when Los Angeles was a cow town.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an actual cowboy.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like a Magnificent Seven type deal. He brings the team together, and then anyway, kind of a saccharine ending, but whatever. Neither here nor there. Los Angeles as a city, I have always been fascinated with.
Oh,
I have been there once.
Okay.
Never again. But
yeah, I gotcha.
It's just one, I'm not really a big city person. And two, it was so bizarre walking around, because I hit like I did Hollywood. We went to the beach. It was, it tried to do everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, you can't do everything in a day, but you try and do as much as possible, and it's just not me, right?
Yeah.
But I really appreciate it. It really is the most American city because it should not exist.
Oh yeah, I
It
agree.
is a city built on a desert, and it is only through the ambition and sweat of men, not good men, actually most of the time awful men, that it continues to be allowed to exist.
And that's Ellroy,
And
and that's Ellroy, and
yeah,
that's like Ellroy's thesis for all the worlds he's built, like where he did the same thing to a similar city that should not exist and was built on a desert. Vegas, the Colt 6000 is about Howard Hughes building Vegas and the mob's.
I'll have to read that
It's
because
phenomenal.
I like.
Well, it's the second one to tabloid. I would go tabloid first, then that, because
I'll read it. Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of rollover characters. Unlike the LA Quartet, there's not too many rollover. There's a few, but
It's
there's
really
not
just
too.
Dudley Smith.
Yeah, Dudley Smith, Buzz Meeks at the beginning. You get guys like that, Mickey Cohen. But like in the Underworld trilogy, you're definitely gonna want to start
okay, yeah.
at tabloid. But yeah, it's phenomenal. And I'm fascinated with stuff like that. I've always, I love Thomas Pynchon, and I know not a
Mhm.
lot of people do, because Thomas Pynchon will be like, I wonder who made that sign, and they're like, no, not who made that sign. What about that one tube that makes the gas run through that tube? Oh, well, actually, that gas was first used on a bomber plane over here, and then it becomes
Right,
this.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what you're looking at is not just a tube; it's actually this 50 million things. And my mind works like that a lot of times. I don't love that it does, but
No, no, it's definitely
Ellroy scratches that itch.
it's not conducive to a productive life.
Exactly. So you have you're right about LA. I go to the neighboring cities more. I mean, it's not close. There's people think California you can just like drive anywhere.
Yeah, that's
It's
the
a
funniest
huge
thing
state.
about people visiting
It's
the country.
yeah,
It's
dude.
like,
You know how many Twitter people hit me up and they go, "Hey, I'm going to be in LA. Like, do you want to like roll through?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "It's 8 hours away." But yeah, I'm like, but
or and then
yeah.
I've heard stories where it's like, yeah, we're gonna do New York, and I think then we'll do the Grand Canyon. That'll take like a day, right?
Dude, Midwest boomers have no clue how the coasts work. But yeah, I mean, bless their
I'm
heart.
talking about Europeans coming to the
Oh
country.
well, yeah, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like they think it's exactly, like a train takes you through like the entire Americas in like 2 days. Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, the LA is cool. It's definitely not the same as it was now. I do love, in the movie, how when they're opening up the freeways, they're like, there will be no more traffic, and you want no stoplights. I'm like,
Oh
dude,
yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's definitely
the
taking
utopian,
the piss there.
yeah,
Uh,
the utopian aspect of that. And I am a city guy. I grew up in cities. I basically live by Silicon Valley and stuff. Like I have only known these. I love getting away and going, not off the grid. I'm not an off the grid guy, but I like to be tastefully on the grid sometimes. But right, I am a city guy. I love cities. I love that's why I love the noir genre, because I love the
mhm.
idea of walking and then seeing something at one place and then turning the corner and seeing something happening, and then talking to somebody over there, somebody that knows me, and having it all be connected. And that's, even though it's the cities are opposites of small towns, there are these like landmark, like it still becomes a small town. Like everything becomes a small
Right,
town.
your neighborhood is a small town, or even your block or your street is
When Facebook came out and there'd be people from my city, which has 1 million people, like no joke, 1 million people, and I'd still see that I had 73 mutual friends with like some guy I've never heard of,
right.
and but I'm like, but in a way I kind of
But
do.
I
Like
know him. Yeah,
I've probably done blow with you at a party, and
right,
dad,
right.
like it's probably happened, like, or something, or at least you've been outside the bathroom wall where I was doing blow, like you've been there. And Ellroy just makes that world so small. In the LA Quartet, his world is tiny. Now in the Underworld trilogy, it's massive. It is
Yeah.
like, it is just this massive scope of everything. He executes both perfectly, and that's how you're dealing with a master.
So, and to because we kind of touched on Chinatown a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got unfortunately I forget what his name, but John Huston's character.
Oh, I don't know his name either, but
Yeah,
yes,
but
yes,
the Noah something.
yes. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Anyway,
about though.
anyway, the big bad of the movie, right?
Yes.
It's so interesting that Los Angeles based anything, you're going to get murder, you're going to get incest,
Porn.
you're yeah, oh yeah, that what an anachronism that is,
Mhm.
right? That the biggest one of the biggest use of LAPD resources is towards finding and shutting down smut distribution.
Yeah.
Like that's like I was reading that and I thought, wow, that's so wholesome.
It's still literally where all the porn is made too. Like, and they don't try to stop it. So
Right, right.
it's like nothing's changed on that front except they
But it's
don't
like,
stop it. Yeah.
yeah, except they don't even try to like they
Yeah.
don't even pretend that it's wrong anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
the Ellroy seedy porn dungeons in China, in like actual Chinatown, like when Bud White sees Deuce Perkins with like 3 girls and stuff down in the like Chinatown opium basement and stuff. It's either him or Spade Kool-Aid, I can't remember. Down in the bottom, I'm like, dude, like that's so wholesome. You know, when I think about, I was like, that's so wholesome compared to like what's happening now.
it's like,
Like,
oh wow, three chicks, okay,
yeah,
that's all.
you know, and just like underneath a Chinese restaurant with steam coming out of the floor, you're like, oh, I wish that's all it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wish that's all we had, and like, I wish that was all we had to worry about what
that
was
was that
happening.
was that was a good line in the movie. Where like I think yeah, Bud White like you know breaks up somebody propositioning a hooker.
Right.
And he's like, I'm not gonna leave. He's like, well, I'm an LAPD detective, and you're gonna leave. He's like, oh yes, yes, sir, officer, right away. He's like, all right, have a good day, councilman.
Yeah, that's so funny. I know.
Uh,
It's like, yeah, no, I love again his world his world building is he does not get mentioned among the greatest world builders. Like, and I'm saying in terms of like fantasy novelists,
right.
he should be with them. Like this is like if you're not into sword and sorcery, but you want to have that same kind of appeal of like just
That scope.
being enveloped in a world where like, you know, that's what this is. And he found a way to take pulpy cop fiction, crime fiction that everyone loves, and just absolutely just the way Tarantino did it with like 70s crime film,
Hmm.
adding another level that other people in prior generations really weren't allowed to do.
You
And
know
so
what? And
yeah.
you've brought up Tarantino a few times,
Uh-huh.
and I will say his Los Angeles in Pulp Fiction
Hmm.
is more real than his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Los
You
Angeles.
think so?
I think so. No, well, it's more lived in, like just
Yeah. Oh, I see
the
what you mean. It's like when you get off, like when you get off to get gas in LA, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm like in Pulp Fiction.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but even like the story of Once Upon a Time, like it's a good movie, right? But he puts on these rose colored glasses
Right.
for old Hollywood.
That's his love letter to LA, whereas Pulp Fiction is his like gross LA movie. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
Yeah,
I see
and
what you mean.
but it's just like you read something like LA Confidential and you're like, dude, what are you trying to sell me right now? I actually dislike Once Upon a Time in Hollywood now because I've read LA Confidential.
Interesting.
Because they're dealing with very like and that was the 70s and the Manson stuff or whatever.
Right.
But like even him saving Sharon Tate's life
Hmm.
through the film.
Yeah.
Even though we could get into that. We could get into Tom O'Neill and chaos and what the Manson family actually was and what Roman Polanski was getting up to.
Mm.
Uh, but just suffice this to say, it would be really funny to me if there's a director's cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where they stop the Manson murders and somehow Sharon Tate still ends up dead.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Would be interesting, right? If and Elroy would write that novel.
Yep.
Like Elroy would write that novel. Like it's he did with the Kennedy assassination. I mean, I truly can't. What he does with that again, I don't think that trilogy is as good as the L.A. Quartet. Those are better books, but that's a bigger accomplishment what he did with those conspiracies.
I'll have to read
Yeah,
American
you'll
Tabloid
you'll love it.
because
I
I
guarantee you'll love
read.
it.
Did you read McCarthy's last two books,
I
especially The
haven't. No,
Passenger?
I haven't.
So
I'm underread on McCarthy. I've only read 2 McCarthy books. Yeah.
at the end of The Passenger, the main character Billy Western.
Mm,
He has a lawyer who's basically a mobbed up lawyer,
okay.
and he's eating in oh, what's his name? Carlos Marcello, I think, or the big Los Angeles
Yeah.
crime boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
His restaurant, right? And the lawyer's pointing out this guy and that guy, and basically it's laid like McCarthy lays out how the L.A. mafia, or not L.A., how the Louisiana mafia, the New Orleans mob, killed Kennedy,
Yep.
and it's just like, oh wow, okay, so yeah, if that's the case, I'll have to read American Tabloid too and compare the two.
Yeah, I mean, there's Carlos Marcello is very much in the LA underworld of Ellroy. He's in a couple of the books. Yeah, yeah. No, so and Sam Giancana, all that stuff's in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all right, cool. I'll
Yeah,
have to read that.
you will love it. Like I said, I stand by his Black Dahlia. I mean, all that stuff is fantastic. It's just it's like it's addicting. I went through it. It was what got me back into reading and because I realized I was too screen oriented and
Mm-hmm.
I was like
Yeah.
but then I realized I'm like this is better than anything I've seen on a screen. Like when I read the Black Dahlia, which I don't even that's not even my favorite of his books, but that was the first one and I was like this is bad. I can turn on my TV. I will not see something on my phone or TV better than what I'm reading right now.
True, true. And the closest I'd say was that first season of True Detective.
Yeah, which there's a lot of. I mean, like I said, the whole child sacrifice stuff in L.A. Confidential, the whole child porn ring and stuff. There's the seeds are sown in that for the True Detective kind of stuff. Which I'm sure that's not where I'm not saying they're aping that. I just mean in 1990 there was a novelist writing a book that they made a movie which ignores that entire part
Oh
of it.
yeah, no, it's interesting what gets cut out of the film.
That entire part, yeah, yeah, that
And
entire plot
yeah,
line.
they tried twice to make this a TV show,
Oh, I
and
wish.
I think it never got past the pilot.
Yeah, Nick Pizzolatto's L.A. Confidential would be
Oh, that would
it would
kick some
be
ass.
masterpiece. I mean, or I even said the clinical nature of Fincher in terms of time. I know Fincher doesn't always go there, but he does get gross, and I
Hmm.
think
Oh,
Fincher's.
Seven was super
Yeah,
gross.
exactly. That's what I mean. Like, if you had Seven mixed with Zodiac, you could do an Ellroy thing. Like, if you
So
did
so
that,
if they did a television show, I'd actually like to do the whole quartet and not even get to LA Confidential until like
yeah,
five seasons in.
yeah, and you would have to make sure you'd have to say, and the problem is no studio signs on for you to work that long anymore. You don't get 3 seasons, you don't get 4 seasons. Like, if it's not now, in our opinion, it would be a huge hit. So of course it would
Oh
get
yeah.
that many.
Oh,
But
are you like? All
yeah,
right. I have talked to Lomez before, so I will pitch that to him. I will say buy the rights to this, and raise whatever money you can, and just
we'll
make
meme it.
this.
We'll meme it into success regardless. Like we'll
Oh,
just,
oh,
well,
most
yeah, yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Well, the boys will get Soldier Up on the timeline and the social media, and we'll make
If
it.
we can get them to re-release Morbius, we can certainly drum up
Exactly.
support for a
Yeah.
gritty Los Angeles yeah crime maxi series.
Yeah, it's just like it has to happen. Like I've because I can see it like with my mind's eye. I could see it. My problem with the movie was just how bright it was,
Hmm.
how like glitzy and glammy it was. I'm like that's my problem. Is it's the movie is fine. It's good. I would even
It's a
say it's
good
good.
it's a good film, but it is not
The book will
a,
make you like it less. It's just
a little bit. I saw the I again. I watched the film first, and I appreciate what they were able to
yeah.
do
Hmm.
with the book, but you're not touching the book. Like, it's just so good.
And just like I said, it's not glamorous. Like the book
No,
isn't like even the people who are successful, even like Pierce Patchett is like jacked and he's like kind of a soldier. He's like and he's a freak. He's a weird smut freak. Like he's not this, again, I think he's brilliantly cast and I like his character in the movie. It's just it's I couldn't tell you how much it isn't that. Like
one last thing on Exley,
yeah, sure.
because it's been on top of mind since I started the book. I was really expecting him to have an affair with Lowe's wife,
Mm, yeah.
because she shows interested him at the beginning,
That's right.
It's clear that their marriage is a complete sham. She even, I'm sure that she's called him some very derogatory names for Jewish people.
Anti-Semitism for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Even in front of his face. So I was really expecting that. So that I kind of wanted that, but that would also diminish Exley a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I just wanted to put that out
If
there.
there was a strategic move, like if he
Yeah,
got desperate, because I mean, the way that they that's another complaint I have about the movie is that right away that Lowe likes dick. And I'm
yeah,
like, I was kind of
yeah.
like, I liked
That
when it
was for me. That was super out of left field.
yeah, I'm kind of like, well, that was in the book. That's actually a huge reveal. Like that's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
a
yeah.
huge, like, oh, and we have a picture of you sucking a cock at a party. So, because he kept saying, you can't prove this. You can't prove I did any of this. You can't prove I,
And it's like,
turned a blind eye. It's like,
I can.
you're right, but I can prove that you sucked a dick.
It's
Yeah,
like,
and
so
then
you're going to retire.
and that's Exley's whole thing of like, would you plant dope on a guy was guilty but not of having dope?
Right.
Like so
Would
that's
you
his that
would
and
you expose somebody for being gay?
yeah. Yeah. Would you do that? Yeah. I have your doxing info
I
and
have
other
your docs,
yeah, I have your docs and your Cox info.
your
And you've
cock
done both.
docs. Oh, and
You've
it's
done both.
I was in
You've
a
done
group
both.
chat today, and the I don't know how this came up organically, but the idea of a cock docs came up.
I
So
mean,
it's funny that
AI, the way AI is going with
it's,
recognition, I
no,
wouldn't be
that's not mine.
surprised. Yeah, it wouldn't be. They'd be like, well,
Uh,
yeah, our research shows that it is yours actually.
well, it's very cold in that picture, clearly.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It was on vacation. It was a different climate.
and it's shrinkage.
Yeah,
Uh, so on to everybody's favorite character, Bud White.
not
And
mine.
I say that kind of tongue in cheek
Yeah,
because he was my favorite character in the movie because Russell Crowe was awesome. Like this
he
is like
rules. He
right
rules.
before Gladiator,
He's incredible in it. Mhm.
and he's just like you see him now, and he's like old and pudgy, but you forget just what an ass kicker he was.
Yeah, he just is looks like a fist. He's just the guy that looks like a fist. He's a big knuckle, like it just, and he's like obviously like a good looking dude, but
Right.
in like a unconventional, but like
In a manly way.
yeah, like in another
Like
time
Guy
he
Pearce is like pretty.
yeah yeah exactly.
This dude's just a fucking
He was
guy.
like Guy Pearce could like go to a village and charm your woman into leaving, and Bud White would just take her out of the house and just like it's
Right.
my wife
And,
now.
and it's funny that you called him. It's not Russell Crowe. He is Bud White. He
Yeah,
completely disappears into the role.
so good.
Uh, yeah,
That first
Bud.
scene, that first scene in the movie where he's outside the domestic violence house, it sets up his character so well. They do the best job with his character in the
Yep.
movie.
Yep.
The movie is Russell Crowe's a star. His character is brute force. He's the action of the movie. It'll be him, and
So Bud White is an LA policeman who is he's almost just the mob enforcer for the LAPD.
yeah,
Right. He has built up this reputation of taking DV calls, domestic violence calls, beating the ever living shit out of any abuser, right? And then visiting them in prison, knowing when they're going to get out, and just like stalking them,
exactly.
like and just making life hell for these guys.
Whereas
Of
Exley would say, "Well, he did his time, so what are you going
Yeah,
to do?"
yeah, yeah.
It's the anti. It's the anti. Yeah,
There's no redemption with Bud White,
right.
which is funny because that is his arc, is that he's able to find self redemption. Actually,
Well, White is powered by women, and one thing you need to know when you read Ellroy's books is Ellroy is a bleeding heart for women. You might get some
Mhm.
femme fatales in his book, but at the end of the day, a lot of the women, unless they're Elizabeth Short and the Black Dahlia, that obviously she doesn't have a great ending because she is the reason for the murder. But the for the most part, if you are good to women, you are going to you're going to be rewarded in a way, right? Bud White obviously is his jaw's broken at the
It's
end.
hell of a reward for him.
Hell of a
But
reward, but he's always trying to avenge his mother being beaten to death with a tire iron in front of him. So
yes,
he's
and he has to sit there and he's chained up and watches his mother
beat with a tire iron.
decompose in front of him.
Yeah, it's
The only reason that he's discovered half starved is because a truant officer is looking for him. Like, just like such a, like, of all the ways to get discovered, it's because the fucking truant officer noticed you're
Yeah.
not in school. Like that. Is there a truant officer anymore?
It's like Ferris Bueller,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Oh,
yeah. Well, and plus, by the way, that guy being your
yeah. That
truant
fucking guy.
officer is rough. By the way,
Yeah.
I would never ditch school. I'd rather be at school. I'd feel like I have a better chance. Yeah.
I heard you skipped school today,
Yeah,
Bueller.
yeah. Well,
No,
let me take a
not me.
picture of you real fast. Yeah, but yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Jeffrey Jones. But anyways,
oh,
the yeah, Bud White, it's like he's powered by women. The only reason he even becomes smart as part of his arc is because of a woman, you know,
right, right.
and
Inez helps him study for his
yeah,
detective's exam.
because what he learns halfway through the book, and it's similar to the Marlowe character in Robert Altman's Long Goodbye, where the big twist in the
Or
Long Goodbye.
not Robert Altman, Raymond Chandler.
No, I'm talking about the movie. I don't know if I don't,
Oh, oh, oh.
I've never read the book, so I don't know if this is in the book.
I
The reason
see, I
I'm
see.
bringing this up, Robert Altman's Long Goodbye is when he finally meets his old friend out in Mexico, and when the guy goes, so I'm here. He goes, yeah, and we hired you because you're an idiot, and we didn't think you'd ever find us. Like, and that's always like that big slap in the face. And Bud White is this brute force. He's this Tony Montana style character, right? Where anybody below Tony Montana is your nightmare. But anybody smarter than Tony Montana, you're like, this is easy. Like I'm Sosa, like in Scarface. So Sosa just sicks all his like Colombian ninjas on them, and it's
Yeah,
easy
yeah.
to
No,
kill.
You had Colombian Terminator.
It's
Just
easy.
take him
Yeah.
out at the
It's
end.
easy to anybody who's smart. Like Dudley Smith is like, this is perfect for me. This guy's an idiot. I can do whatever I want with this guy. And he can go bust up his do his domestic violence kind of retribution stuff while solving stuff for me. And in some cases do both at the same time. And but then Bud White realizes I'm just gonna get played for the rest of my life. And that's going to be my time. And I'm probably going to get sacrificed. And I'm probably going to be a fall guy eventually. In fact, he was at the beginning of the book. But Dudley Smith could eventually get tired of me, and Bud White kind of goes his own way. He becomes really the rogue detective of the novel in the last act.
It's actually he. There's a really good scene in the book where Exley begrudgingly compliments White, where he's like, "Wow, he's done a lot of good work on this. Like he's an actual
With
detective."
the Janeway body thing,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Oh wow, dude, he's actually figured." Even with Pierce Patchett in his
Mm-hmm.
murder, he's like, well, clearly this isn't a suicide. He's got broken fingers."
Yeah, yeah,
Just some really good stuff there.
yeah.
Exley, of course, Exley, all he has is his brain. So to lose that to White too a little bit is just like such a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And White does form out to be a pretty good cop at the end.
He does. He does the honorable thing. I mean, yeah, he does. If you could say he does something kind of wrong in leaking his private investigation to a hush hush adjacent kind of magazine. But even then, that's what gets the case opened
Yeah,
up, which nobody
it's a greater
wants.
good thing.
Yeah, which nobody wants, but you realize for Exley would never have that. He would always have his suspicion in his mind, but he would never be powerful enough really to actually get that done himself. And White uses his kind of he was really a martyr in the book the whole time, to get that case back open and open up everything that's the Night Owl was either protecting or fueling. So that's, and finding the body under the house. I love that scene. Under the Deuce was it not Deuce Perkins? Duke
Deuce,
Cathcart.
yeah,
Duke
Cathcart, yeah.
Cathcart. Finding that body underneath the house, and just like his growing as a detective, where it's like, if you're working at a job and you realize you're really good at one thing, but then you see something come in, or you find out they're automating part of your job, or going paperless with a certain part of it, and you realize like, I gotta learn
something
shit.
else. Yeah.
I gotta do some other shit. I can't just kiss ass, because we got new managers in here and corporates running the show now. It's this kind of as it grows, Bud White realizes, I am going to become Mal Lunsford, Dick Stens. You see, I work in construction, and when I see, like, I don't want to work in construction my whole life. There's kind of a love for construction on Twitter, I see it's like, oh, I just want to like get a shovel and work. I'm tired of the office. I'm like, fuck off. No, you don't, because if
Yeah,
you
let me see Office Space
have
too.
you seen a guy who retires from construction who actually was a laborer his whole life?
I mean, my uncle was a carpenter, right? So he was
Carpenter's
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
Carpenter's
no,
different.
but I'm saying like even he's
Yeah.
pretty messed up from it, you know?
Sure. Yeah,
Like,
it's a drugged out industry. It's drugged out. Your knees go. You're in pain your whole life, and you retire, and you hope you have some kind of pension. And Bud White, I saw that with him, where I'm like, I gotta advance a little bit. I got to do something, because I don't. I've seen like some best case scenarios that I don't even want to be. you know.
and at the end of the novel, he is about to drive away with Lynn Bracken. He quote unquote wins, right? He
Sure.
gets he gets his cowboy goodbye, his ride off into the sunset, and he and Exley share this moment. And he said this at least twice before, where he tells Exley like, "Thanks for the push,"
Thanks for the push.
you know,
That's
and
real man shit, dude. That's
and
real man shit.
yeah, and they put their hands up on the glass, and you know uh, you've got Exley. He's got like regular size, maybe even small hands, but you've got White's just giant catcher's mitts, right? And even though they're completely different guys, there is this understanding between the two, which is they're never going to be friends,
And
but
do you know women that do this? Like, I don't know. I don't know that this works that way for them. I think this is truly a male brain thing, where you realize like, no, I need this person that I hate.
right,
Or not
right.
even hate. Like they do
Well,
hate
they
each
did,
other.
and they
They
hated each other for a while.
they hated
I
each
think they
other for legitimate reasons. But
totally
you
legitimate reasons.
realize like the whole time towards the end, it's like, neat. Okay, White's not solving that case on his own. Exley's not solving that case on his own. And you realize, and this is Ellroy coming to terms with himself, right? Like in a sense, like he is a straight up weird benzodrine kind of like benzo addict guy who spent, basically the first 35 years, maybe even close to 40 years of his life.
Elroy's still alive, right?
He is. He's about 80 years old right now. And
God
but doing
bless.
that for a lot of his life, and just spiraling. I mean, he was in and out of juvenile hall. If you look up his mugshots, he's been arrested a million times when he was in his like drug days and stuff. And all that's he had to do his brute force, or not had to, but just one way or another was a brute force kind of guy. And then also was one of the smartest people I've seen write books. I mean, as far as process and diligence and research and stuff, and realizing that those, you don't want to become all Exley and you don't want to become all Bud White, but you realize that if you have both of those things, like both are equally important, and you should keep a little bit of that on reserve when you're too much of one thing, to use. And it's a beautiful ending for them.
And we kind of glossed over Bud White because there's a few different things that he's got going on. He is investigating the Night Owl Cafe murders, right?
And also prostitute murders of
Yeah, well, and that's what leads him to the prostitute murder, like the Catherine Janeway murder.
right.
Which, what's your take on that? Because that never really gets tied up so much.
I thought Deuce Perkins did it. I thought that was
Right.
what they said. The Deuce Perkins was the one who killed Janeway. I thought that was
No. Yeah. Again, it's a really thick book. It's
yeah.
honestly very tough to keep.
I could even be wrong like that, because again, you're right. It's more of a fuel, because there's times in the book where he's like, Catherine Janeway says, "Go, keep going." Like in his head, there's those moments where Ellroy does these really good inner monologue things where they're really short. They're just kind of like, Catherine Janeway says, "Keep going, bud." Kind of with that, and she's kind of just this fuel thing where it's like, if I don't do what I'm doing, like there's just going to be more and more of these girls. And Catherine Janeway's a girl that was raped by her dad. Her uncle was even worse.
And she meets Duke Cathcart, who is a pimp.
Yeah,
But
and
he's
he's
like
like,
a pimp with a heart of gold who like takes care of her.
Yeah, he's like the pimps when I worked at a cannabis club that had like $5 for weed, and I was like, "Damn, dude, you suck!" Like, like you're
Terrible
not.
pimp.
Yeah, like I'm like, and his like, he just like wasn't good at his job, but was just kind of constantly being a middleman for like bigger operations. And Bud White just hates that whole world, right?
Right.
And Bud is going throughout the book, and he doesn't his one thing is violence against women. He's down for whatever else, anything
When
else.
he's investigating and he gets the names, he gets
Uh,
Pratchett and Lynn Bracken's names
yeah.
from what's his face, uh, the gay dude.
Oh, Timothy Valburn.
Yeah, yeah, and he shoves his hand in the garbage disposal.
Oh, no, 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 no. That's God, what is that guy's name? He was the light skinned guy. The guy they say was white skinned but passed as white.
Right, right, right.
Gillette.
Gillette, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and like he just even that he's like, oh, that was too far. That's not good.
And
I
that
shouldn't have done that.
No, yeah, and he kind of that he brings it up with Lynn Bracken in that beautiful scene where they have some great lines where they say she's like you say fuck a lot, and he says, yeah, well, you fuck for money. And then there's also she's like, you have blood on there, and she goes, did that guy deserve it? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, he's like,
No, probably not.
yeah, man, probably not, but whatever. He's like, and again, Bud White is doing the anti-Exley. You're probably doing something else I don't like. Let me take care of this now. Whereas Exley's like, we need to go through all the channels. We need to go through
Yep.
the bureaucracy because the bureaucracy is great and it could never fail us.
And so
Yeah.
so you have the three detectives. Two of them are Dudley Smith's boys, right?
Yes.
Vincennes has always been on Dudley Smith's payroll. Well, not payroll, but he's been a Smith man his most of his career
Mhm.
ever since the shooting,
Right.
right? Uh, you've got White who becomes the next Vincennes, right? He's
Hmm.
got his own problems, and Smith is like, oh, a vulnerable guy that I can use who's only going to be a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Yes, please, thank you very much.
Right.
But then he also uses Exley's priggishness
Yeah.
to his advantage.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, I'm protected by the system from this guy. So even if he doesn't like me, he's not going to do anything because he doesn't want to either ruin the department or he doesn't want to go outside the
Yeah.
normal channels. So I'm pretty well insulated from him. And it's only when the three of them get together that he even gets close to getting caught.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I love the part where he finally figures out through tracing the phone calls from the uh title bombs, Kike title bombs.
Which hell of a name.
Yeah. Oh no,
I think.
that's
Oh,
all
he even gets that his. I think it's his death. No,
that
no, it's the Italian guy.
emptied the clip into his head, John Stompanato. I can't. Yeah, they're both in the same spot, so they both get it the same way. It's Title Bomb and Stompanato because they're Cohen's kind of guys,
Right,
and
but that actually happened in real life. It was his girl. It was Stampanato's girlfriend.
Lana
Uh,
Turner's sister, I thought,
or yeah, yeah,
or daughter. I can't remember.
yeah.
It's one of the two.
Something, but
Yeah,
like yeah, like that actually happened in real
yeah, and he
life. So
wrote that
he's
into the book. He did write
yeah,
that into the book.
because
Yeah.
the Christmas massacre that actually happened. The Night Owl
Hmm.
massacre that actually happened.
Yeah, in the big nowhere, there's lots of communist Hollywood protests that are like real events that he writes like stuff happening into and stuff like kind of like the uh um McCarthy era stuff. It's really he always has real events that he fills the
He
gaps in.
anchors, yeah, he
Yeah,
anchors his
yeah,
plots to
he
them.
puts his own he puts his own missing links in, I guess we would say. And so but Bud White, when he finally he traces the phone call and he's like, who's been calling here? And it's Dudley Smith. And I love that moment. And then when they go in and they just take out those guys, and like I said, empty the clip into one of those two guys' head. There's like another woman that just like instantly, which makes Bud White even worse, right? A woman getting shot and like just taking a bunch of bullets in a cafe, basically reliving the Night Owl over again. But when Bud gets going, like it's such a reward, right? For when you've read all the headline clippings, like you've been really thorough with it. You're like, I don't want to miss a single thing in here because I understand this can all come back to me later. And you get rewarded. It's like a little treat when you just get Bud White brute force in this book. You're just like, whether it's good or bad, whether he's making a mistake or not, you're like, smash somebody's head in, Bud. Come on, dude.
Oh, most definitely. And he he makes peace with the fact that, well, it's funny because he's at first he likes being the sledgehammer, right? And it's only because actually you could say it's Exley that really makes him want to be more.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. It's
no,
100%. Yeah, it's 100%. They are.
I
He's powered by women. I think he's powered by women. His like, he found a way to make his because he's trying. Again, this is a book about genetics. Bud White wants to not be his dad. However, he has
oh, and there's
those fits of rage that his
but
dad
he
clearly
also
has.
he beats Lynn Bracken.
And that's the problem. That is Bud White's worst mistake of the book. I mean, if you're talking about Bud White's rules for himself, there is that point when she has sex with Exley because Exley got one over on him one way or another. Whether she was being, whether it was, kind of part of a sting operation on Exley or trying to get him to do something, doesn't matter. He still hit, and it was then he beats her up. He does the thing that he said he would never do and the thing that he punishes people for, far beyond what the justice system would ever do. He does he has that moment of failure, and it's right around just over the halfway part of the book when that happens, and then you're like, okay, do you go the Vincennes route? Do you just drink your sorrows away, start shooting random people, really make yourself vulnerable, and kind of black pill like a Jack Vincennes kind of mode, or do you get smarter? Do you try to get that? Do you try to get this case solved? Because you have that whole Engelkling thing happening. He travels. He goes all over the place to try to find the answer. I mean, his
He puts in
determination.
some real detective work,
He does.
and what Elroy is great at, because it's impossible to write a character that is smarter than you, right? But you can write characters that are dumber than you, right?
Absolutely.
But that's also pretty hard too. One thing that I hate to plug my own stuff, but one thing that I've found when I'm writing is I can sometimes fall in the trap where everybody just kind of sounds the same,
I see.
right? Uh, and with Elroy here, he really he shows how difficult some of this crap is for Bud White to piece together.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see that, like, he's just not even playing with a full deck, but he's just not cut out for some of this stuff, but he's doing his best, and
Right.
he gets pretty freaking far with it.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he maximizes his ability as much as Exley maximizes his ability. And Exley's fighting a family demon, and so is Bud White, but that family demon's not there. He doesn't have to face that demon incarnate. Like he doesn't actually have to see his dad. He doesn't actually have to smooth that over. So Bud White is he's kind of free in a way that Exley isn't, but also he's also more free to be used by Dudley, by
Right,
Dudley
right.
Smith. Like,
You're kind of you kind of. I was rooting for just somehow for Bud White to find his father.
yeah.
That would have been a great, like at the same time, he might have lost his hunger if he ever did.
That's what I mean. And how many times did he basically punish his father, by proxy, right? So
Right,
many
right.
times. He was able to do that. And to be honest, he can't save his mom. You can only
No,
revenge his mom. He saved a woman on Christmas night, right? That was getting her ass kicked. He obviously takes out Perkins and all these other guys, or I can't remember if it's Perkins. No, Perkins effectively almost takes him out, but he does show down with Perkins. Deuce Perkins, that scene is also expertly written, where you could see him just coming at him with a pistol and just shooting him, and Bud White takes so many shots. His toughness is on display. I mean, stuff would
he
have
gets
killed.
stabbed.
Yeah. Oh, he takes
He
bad
takes
shots,
a hell of a
and then
beating.
guess what? He uses his bare hands
Yep,
and
yep.
wins. What a
It
beast!
breaks his
Just
hands.
like Vince Vaughn Brawl in Cell Block 99, kind of a death, kind of either death or severe poor quality of life awaits you at a best case
Yeah,
scenario.
actually, if they do ever do an Elroy, like an Elroy series, Vince Vaughn's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, because wasn't he's True Detective season 2, which is like
Yep,
kind of the Ellroy season, which I
yep.
still don't like. I don't know.
No, you didn't like it.
I
I
have
think
to try it again. I because I hadn't read Ellroy at the time.
Mystery Grove really
That's a
got me
lot.
to like it.
Twitter loves to tell me how good it is.
Yeah.
I gotta try it again. I hadn't read Ellroy at the time that I watched it, so
there are
maybe
only 2 seasons of True Detective, so it's really
yeah,
cool
yeah.
how both of them are great.
Yeah, the Mahershala Ali Black Lives Matter one was not quite didn't quite do it for me.
What's that?
The third one, the
I
third
don't
season,
what?
yeah,
Third?
a
Hmm?
third season of True Detective, right? That's
Never
the
heard
one.
of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't recognize that.
Doesn't exist.
You're putting words together that
Yeah,
sound like English, but
yeah, yeah. It's well, no, I don't even know if that sounds like English. Mahershala Ali, the Black Lives Matter. Yeah, no, it was just a bunch of.
Gesundheit.
It was a bunch. Yeah, it was just a bunch of code that I said. But yeah, the no, I agree. Like that, we need to. We got to put this stuff on like real gritty long form TV because it's kind of like Stephen King. It's like there's only a couple good Stephen King movies because Stephen King books are fucking like 800
Yeah,
pages.
actually, the best Stephen King, the 2 best Stephen King movies are based on short stories:
Well, which ones are those?
The Mist and Shawshank.
That's interesting. Yeah, Shawshank for sure. Shawshank. I mean, I love Pet Cemetery, so I can't.
I actually haven't seen that one, but
Dude,
I
Pet
love The
Cemetery book.
Mist.
I don't recommend Pet Cemetery because it is brutal. But
Well,
yeah,
actually, and I say this out loud, and I'm like, wait, what am I thinking? Like, The Shining, but that's kind of
it,
a cop out because it's nothing like the book.
it's not even close. Well, because it's Kubrick. If Kubrick's adapting your book, it's his. So you're not.
Yeah.
You don't. It's not your book anymore. I mean, that's
Well, I
just.
mean, yeah, but at least he had the good sense to change Paths of Glory from whatever he adapted it from.
Yeah, I've been meaning to read that book just to see where it came from because I have it on my Kindle, the Paths of Glory book. I'm like, is this good? It can't be as good as this fucking movie
The
is.
movie's so
Yeah,
good.
it rules, and I don't get to
It's
look at Kirk Douglas in the damn, in the book, like,
that and the 1978 made for TV version of All Quiet on the Western Front.
I think
Uh,
in high school, my teacher, I don't remember it, but I
it's
think
got
that's what we
Ernest
watched.
Borgnine in it
Yes,
as
yes,
Ketchinsky. That's those two, and then actually the Lost Battalion, which was another made for TV movie
interesting. I
with
haven't.
Ricky Schroeder
Whoa,
as the main character as an
yeah,
adult. Uh, yeah,
amazing.
those are my favorite. What like 1917 bullshit. Uh, what are those other the new All Quiet on the Western Front bullshit?
Mm,
Like they
yeah.
really just don't get World War One right these days, and
No, I guess not. I know I gotta read that Paths of Glory book because I have it. It was free on Kindle, and I grabbed it just to put in the library just to have. So I was like,
right.
just for at some point because I just love that movie so much. So I was like I want to see. I'm like, obviously this has to come from something. I gotta, it's gotta
Yeah,
be kind
yeah.
of cool. I can't imagine it's like maybe it's not different. Maybe it is like that same energy. I'd love to see
Well,
it.
apparently with that, what happened in real life was objectively worse.
I
They they took 30 sergeants
oh
and killed them
oh
because they couldn't put the privates on trial because the privates were just following orders,
yeah
and they weren't going to put any officers on trial. So
uh-huh
instead of 3 random men, they took like 30 sergeants from this battalion and executed them.
yeah. Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, that's how the book is. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to check
Uh,
it out. I'll have to check it out. But yeah.
we're almost at 2 hours here, which I'm I'm more than happy to keep going, but I want to be mindful of your time.
Oh no. Well, let's
Uh,
get it done. I mean, if you got any more thoughts in the clip on LA Conflict,
yeah,
empty them, man. There's nothing
it
worse than leaving too much meat on the bone.
Dudley Smith is like the specter that is everywhere in this book,
Yes. Also, I have
and
Sauron. I have Sauron.
yeah, arguably he is the most understandable character.
Yep.
He is the guy he is the guy that keeps everything running,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, and you might not like him, but there's always going to be him. So you might as well get one who's good at what he does. You know, there's how many Dudley Smiths running our government right now, or running, let's say, a local government for your city, my city, wherever,
Yeah,
right? And they're just not doing a great job
and
of it.
they're incompetent. They're about half the IQ of them too.
You
Yeah.
know, so like,
Yeah.
interesting question. Is it would it be a good outcome for Exley to take down Smith?
Um. Yes, but he can't do it the Bud White way. So if he wants to do it the Bud White way, in honor of Bud White, he wants to just go in there
Just go in there, kick some
and
ass. Yeah.
blast his ass, or like he'd have to set him up. He'd have to set him up Jack Vincent style. Is what he'd have to do. He'd have to go into the
Yeah,
plant, you know,
get the muckraking paper to get
because
his picture in the paper.
because they keep saying Dudley Smith loves porn. They always kept saying that he loves the smut. Like they never, you know, he doesn't have those moments sitting at with it like Jack Vincennes does, but they keep saying and Dudley's like in on the smut racket. It's like maybe there's something to be exploited there. Like once after a while, Exley's going to keep climbing in the ranks, climbing and climbing and climbing, especially being seen that he's been able to throw his own family out under the bus for the better good of the city. So he would be in the good graces of the people, you would think, you know, to be able
Oh, and then he
to
gets
set him up.
the chief hands him the what is it, the Medal of Merit or
But
something.
also he needs to become a little bit of a Dudley Smith and have
Well,
people
and
to
that's the thing too,
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
Dudley Smith is basically all three guys. He's not afraid to kick
Exactly.
some ass. He is the social climber that Exley is, and he also knows how to set people up.
He has bedside manner. He says the kind of he's you know there's a character that's escaping me in a very famous novel. I can't remember, but they're never yelling. They're never cussing at anybody really. Like, but they're getting their point across. They're intimidating you. It's still very scary, but it doesn't really indict you on anything. And that's how smart Dudley Smith is. He's Teflon Dudley. I mean, he always seems to survive. He always seems to get through, and because he plays the game and also is the game. So it's
I kind of hearing what he becomes in Paraphedra,
yeah. Perfidia is before.
or whatever novel that he gets like outed as a white supremacist.
No, because I mean it's in a yeah, I see what you mean becomes, but it's actually a prequel, I think.
Yeah, but I don't like that. I think that kind of diminishes him, and makes him a little bit more one dimensional.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
Like
mean
it just
I'd like to try it. I'm curious.
you take a complex villain and just okay, now we're going to just make him bad. He is just all bad now.
Yeah, and I
You
don't
know?
and to be fair, I don't know that it's framed that way. I just know that I
Well,
think that
just the way that our culture is.
yeah, for sure. The way it would be interpreted if it came out in true because I think this came out in like probably like 2008 or something. I something like that. So maybe it was definitely a different time back then, like a completely different
Yeah.
time. It was pre
Also,
2010.
the guy's Irish,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
really like. You know, just being who I am.
Same,
Uh,
yeah, but
but
yeah, the same, yeah. There's, yeah, I in the audiobook that he does, the guy does a really nice,
a nice brogue.
yeah. He goes, lad, you've got to talk to a woman this way. You can't do that, lad. Like it's like James Cromwell in Babe, like
Mm,
it's basically what he did.
that'll do, bud. That'll do.
Yeah, it kind of did that. I was like, I wonder if this dude was just doing it works. I was like, it totally works, but he's a prick, obviously. You know, instead, but it's quite funny. By the way, I gotta give a shout out to the guy. I think his name's Craig Wasson, who did the audiobook. Phenomenal job.
Yes,
It
I
was
started by listening to the audiobook, and then I
yeah.
just had to pick it up. I just had to read it
It's
because
clearly a yeah, well, it would have been tough if I didn't know what was going on because it's such a complex plot to follow on a first read for audiobook. But for a second one, just having a frame of reference of what happens in the book, it was a lot easier to follow along. A lot of stuff, a lot of like open world video game maps started opening in my mind. Like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. Like that's all available to me now. But yeah, there were so many of these. The voices are so funny. The Asian opium den voices, the black dudes, the Raymond Coates voices. I mean, this must have been book on tape, like buy it at Borders in 2002 or
right.
something,
There's
because
no way
this
that
is
this
no
was
way that
recorded recently.
yeah, Audible contracted this out recently because this dude is going hardcore, like Bubba Gump like voice, or like insane voices for like these black rapist guys and stuff. I was like, wow, like what a time this was that we were all alive for. Yeah.
So one more thing about Dudley Smith.
Yeah.
You hear about these crimes, like, oh, there was a quadruple homicide in a diner or in a cafe,
Yeah.
right? Reading that now, it's kind of quaint
Yeah.
with just the mass violence that we're subjected to on the news every
Right.
single day. And that's how you know that you kind of need a Dudley Smith to keep everything together.
It's the Judge Holt. It's why Blood Meridian comes into.
Yep. Oh
It's
yeah.
why it's
Oh,
why it
definitely.
completely comes in. It's like Dudley Smith is Judge Holden. He is. It's this. Yeah, you hate him, sure, fine, whatever. What does anything happen without his presence? Judge, how many times does Judge Holden save these guys from all sorts of danger in Blood Meridian, while still everybody knowing, not
And
everybody,
and
but
and you can tell if Bud White got out of hand, he would dispatch him, right?
yeah,
In fact, Buzz Meeks, who gets out of hand,
mm-hmm.
who takes him out, it's Dudley Smith.
Absolutely.
You know,
And you can't escape him because he knows where you're at already. He know again, it's the Judge Holden thing. It's like he's just a step ahead of you. It's almost like it's deja vu for him a little bit. Everything that's happening, like there's always that, because in the absence of we've said as much. In the absence of a Dudley Smith, there will become a Dudley Smith that takes his place, or perhaps Exley becomes that. Perhaps
and that's I haven't read White Jazz. I'll probably start with the Big Nowhere first and work my way back.
Yeah. Well, Black Dahlia is the first one,
Or
but yeah,
Black Dahlia,
yeah,
and
you
then Big
definitely got
Nowhere, and just do the quadrilogy proper, the
yeah, because
quartet, I guess,
yeah.
and just
You'll want to
it's
reread. You'll like basically want to reread Confidential by the time you read the other two books, like before it, because it's fun. It's like so much happens in those, and it's like it's not it's like again, they all stand alone. They're fine
right.
if you pick one of these of the quartet. Whereas in the Underworld trilogy, you're definitely going to want to start from the beginning. On the Underworld trilogy, it's way too much. You would not want to just jump in at the Cold 6000. You'll have no idea what's happening.
Right.
But
I guess and feel free to tell me before I read it. But like, actually, does he come back or not?
I can't remember. He's not like the guy,
Right. But I'm
I don't. He
thinking,
might.
like,
It's because I honestly, that book did nothing for me. Like
oh,
Max
White
said
Jazz did
nothing.
nothing for you.
Yeah, like it was just, I was like, I really wish it just ended at LA Confidential. Honestly,
Right.
like I mean, again, there's the guy's name is Dave Klein, and he's like such an anti-hero. It's like over anti-hero Dave Klein in White Jazz. It's just like, this guy's beyond redemption, but so is the city, and obviously that's the case with LA Confidential, but there's still more endearing things about all of these characters within that. It's kind of like when people say I don't like reading nihilism. I'm like, well, yeah, but also there's a journey you get to a nihilistic ending where
oh,
you still
totally.
find
Like,
pockets of
you read
happiness in them. In White Jazz, I didn't get any of that. I felt like just the whole time it was like, city's fucked. City's fucked.
if you read Camus, right,
Oh, yeah,
or
okay.
even
Okay.
if you read Walker Percy's The Moviegoer,
I
you
have,
you can read nihilism and still get something out of it.
I need some, man. I'm kind of a bleeding heart sometimes. I need a little nihilism. It's like sometimes it happens. I understand you can't fall down that rabbit hole, and you can't use nihilism as a default. Absolutely not. It's bad for it's actually the plan for men, and that's why men are where they are right now.
Yeah, a little too much.
But also there's sometimes I care way too much, and then I read something and I'm like, oh, that was nice. It was nice that it ended that way.
I'm glad I don't have to care about this.
Yeah. Or just like, at the end of the day, like, there's kind of a relief sometimes when like, oh, there's no, like, let's bring up COVID. Like, the worst people were people that thought there could ever be zero COVID. The way to have zero COVID was for us to ignore it.
Yeah.
But we didn't. But there were people that wanted to be bleeding hearts about it, but then have there be this fake world where like we could have zero, just zero,
right?
Risk, zero risk world.
New Zealand did that.
Yes,
where it's like, oh yeah, we can actually just cut ourselves off from the world.
Exactly.
And we can just be in the Shire. We can be we can be hobbits.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that. No, and that's what Ellroy lets you know, but like there's still so much heroism in his books. Like there's still
Mhm.
so much of that, because that is still what men need to do. That's what men are hardwired to do. Even
Yeah,
being a man is knowing a bad ending is happening and still performing your duty,
yeah.
right?
Actually,
Yeah.
now that you said like anti-heroes are actually bullshit.
Yes and no. I like the problem is there's like what's good in LA Confidential is that there's a variety of types in there. It's just White Jazz is just Dave Klein, and it's like he's kind of just like Bad Lieutenant Harvey Keitel, which a movie I love, but I don't love it with Elroy's kind of situation. Like,
Yeah.
it would be like if LA Confidential was just Jack Vincennes
Mm.
and like no other foils, nobody to play off of it.
Yeah,
Whereas Jack Vince,
and Jackson's, but with the ending that he dies at the end, right?
yes,
And the movie just ends there.
yeah, where you're just like, so what did I mean? Yeah, that was fun,
Like,
but
what was the point of that?
what was the journey? There's no payoff. Whereas I think every good Elroy book, which I would say I've read of his fiction, I've read 7 of his books. 6 of them all reward you in ways that you're not even prepared to be rewarded,
Mm.
including LA Confidential. I think I'm like, wow, I actually like really like you really get that nice tight Agatha Christie style ending, like where you for the most part for like
Yeah, no, it's like Columbo comes in and kind of
exactly,
breaks it
exactly.
down for you.
Exactly. And I don't even require that out of my novels. I just mean it's like I was surprised he was able to do that. And it's like this other satisfying thing. Now, White Jazz, I just didn't get that. I was just like, man, this sucks. Like I'm ready to move on to something else. Like it was and it's where he employed that new style that he perfected in the Underworld trilogy, where it's so intoxicating in that.
Mm.
But it was such a reaction. It was such a reactive move by him that it just felt like he was trolling to end a quartet. And
Interesting.
I didn't. There are people who disagree with me big time, by the way. Like that is not a shared thing. There are a lot of people a lot of writers love White Jazz.
I'll definitely check it out. And you know what we can do? I'll definitely have you back on for the whole quartet. How about
Well,
that?
I'm covering it, so you can come on
Oh,
when I'm
are
done.
you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
you.
yeah. I'm covering
Ah,
it. Yeah, no,
dick.
no, yeah. That's a deep. Black Dahlia taught me how to read again. That's Gain of Fiction season 2. You are
No,
more than
fair
welcome to
enough,
join me.
man.
We could double publish. I'm always fine with that.
Oh, that'd be great.
But yeah, we will
I
do.
need to make my
Yeah,
rare candy appearance
you do.
and
Yeah,
just
I mean,
siphon
you
off
you've
listeners from you.
you've auditioned well today by with talking about this book because no, it's a tough one to talk about. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. There's gross stuff that's happening in it. Really like heinous stuff.
I don't know. I'm obsessed with this crap, and
It's great.
my wife says, Hudson. She doesn't call me Hudson, but she says, Hudson. Aren't you worried that you're just going to become all this dark stuff that you read? And I'm like, no, I actually I'm not. But it's I have to be witness to it. I have to know what's really going on.
Dude, I'm not like this type of stuff. It's like kind of extreme crime, gore, fiction, and stuff. That stuff is like comforting to me. I don't know why. And then when it's like
I feel you there on a deeply uncomfortable level.
but like I'm not. I'm like yeah. There's certain parts of
No, no,
like
no, I'm
yeah,
uncomfortable with the fact that I'm comfortable with it.
yeah, yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, but yeah. But then when I read The Trial, Kafka, scariest book
Mhm.
I've ever read in my life because I'm
Yeah,
like that's me. That's literally me. And this is me being shown like somebody taking a black light to my room and seeing all the fucking jizz stains all over
I'll
the
have
wall.
to remind me after this. I wrote a short story about uh the trial, but it's an AI that does your sentencing.
Amazing.
Let me send it to you.
Please, please, I would like
I
to read
think
it.
I think it's pretty good stuff.
I would like to read it because is it published?
Yeah, it's on my Substack, and
Okay,
then
cool.
I've got a short story collection coming
Okay.
out at end of this year.
That's
Online.
really cool. Yeah, I would love to read some of your work because and short stories help because I have a huge reading list and I can just pop in for a second and read and kind of
And,
get to know you.
what is cool about Substack is the AI voice. I know some people
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
against it. It does help with it's not so much fiction reading. but some of the articles and stuff that are on there, if I'm doing something, it's easier if it's a podcast than actually. I can't read stuff at work.
Yeah, I totally no, I totally agree. I use all of the methods. I use Kindle, I use physical copies, and I use audiobooks because I would only read 30% of what I read. Like if I only just sat down with a physical copy.
Hmm.
And I try to read a novel every 2 weeks. I try to. It doesn't
Yeah,
always happen, but I try to
but
do
not
that.
but not in like a really gay. What's his name? Lex Friedman way.
No, no. I would totally fucking talk to that guy about books and just try to and just kind of I don't
See
like
what
him,
he's
but I would.
about.
Yeah, but I would just it would just be insane to read the same book as that guy and then hear what his take is. Like when if you were you're like, damn, dude, what the fuck are you
It's like,
talking about?
what did you get out of the Brothers Karamazov?
Why?
No,
Yeah,
no,
I know his
you know,
video is so short on that too. I'm like, you asshole, dude. How you gonna have a fucking 10-minute video on the Brothers
yeah. I
Karamazov?
did, I did like I
I
think
listened to your
4 hours.
I listened to your Brothers Karamazov episode.
Oh, did you? All
That
right, yeah,
was the
yeah.
one
Because
when you invited me on because that is a top 5 book for me ever. So I love that. I mean that
so you
novel.
were like, all right, I got to make sure that this guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, I liked that it wasn't a tight, zippy 1 hour. I was like, okay, well, you clearly don't know what you're talking about if you've done an hour on the Brothers Karamazov, and then you had 2 parts, right? It was 2 parts, I
Yeah,
think.
if I remember correctly, we did 4 hours.
Yes. So yeah, 2 hour session. That was how when you asked me, I was like, well, let me listen to this guy. I don't want to just jump in blind, and I listened to that, and you guys were absolutely. You came at it what I love about that book is you can come at it from 5 different ways and be right. You can come at it from a background of having Russian knowledge and all that stuff, but
Hmm.
also me, somebody who doesn't know anything about Russia, I felt like I got it too. It was just Dostoevsky is one of those guys. I get him. I just understand him. I read him, and it's fine. Melville's not that to me. I'll read Melville,
Right,
and I'm like,
right.
this is these are just words on a page. To me, I'm sure they're beautiful. I don't doubt that this is a skilled writer, but Dostoevsky, I'm like, no, this is seeping into my genetic code right now. This is,
And it's funny because I did Anna Karenina, which is an even longer book, right?
Tolstoy. Yeah.
And I did maybe 2 hours on it, like definitely less.
Yeah.
And I feel like we covered a lot of ground with it because it's just it in some ways it's a perfect novel, right? But it
Mhm.
just doesn't. It's more straightforward.
And some things you squeeze certain things and not as much juice comes out. It's just certain novels are like that.
Right.
I've Crying of Lot 49, Thomas Pynchon is I
That's a
did I
short book, yeah.
it's a short book, but sad part is it was only my second fiction episode, so I only did an hour and 10 minutes. But I could do 4 hours on Crying of Lot 49, and it just wouldn't. That doesn't. There's just so much.
Maybe we'll do a Crying of Lot
I
49
would.
redemption episode for
I
you.
would absolutely come back on to reread because I like revisiting novels a lot.
Wonderful.
Yeah, especially because it eats at me a little bit if I don't exactly. I've read more Pynchon since then, so I just feel like there's more to talk about. But yeah, I just for me, these reading is just working out to me. It's kind of this thing I have to do, but then also having the show kind of makes me honest about it when there's maybe a day I don't feel like getting any, reading in. I
Oh,
want to go to,
definitely.
but it's like, hey, maybe still 30 pages today. I have this never ending list, but I love overwhelming myself with it because it's just more fun books to read. And it's a fun way to talk to the friends
Yeah,
about
no, this show has eaten up more time than I thought it would because I didn't think I'd be doing an episode a week, right?
it. Yeah,
Which is the pace that I'm at right now, and it's a decent, doable pace because I'm also retreading on a lot of books that I've read before,
sure.
right? Uh, but yeah, I'm like, oh, maybe I can phone it in on this one. It's like, no, no, you can't, because as soon as somebody catches you, your credibility's done. No, why should any if you really if you phone it in once, what's the point of you doing the show at all?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, no, it's just it's you. Yeah, dude, you're right, and I'm like I don't take notes when I read my books.
no, me neither. I
I don't.
should.
The only book I ever did was Blood Meridian because that book really hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was just like, there's so much going on, and everybody has the Blood Meridian episode, so I'm like, let me make sure I really say everything I want to say, and then guess what? I didn't look at the entire episode. My
Your
fucking
notes. Yeah.
So I was like, why did I do that?
Well, no, because to defend note takers, or I was never a note taker in college,
Yeah, same.
but you take the notes down, and then it helps you to remember those points.
Well, what I do, and I found is a good process for me on Gain of Fiction, I do reading interludes. I usually find passages I like, something, maybe some plot related stuff. A lot of times it's just prose, like examples of good prose and stuff. And I will record that an hour before the episode if I have the time. And then I felt like I just read like spark notes of the book by the time that's done, and I'm back, and I'm just like, I'm like fired up again, and I'm ready to go. And that has been like something that helps for me. But yeah, it's just like the notes, and then I'll look at it, and half the time it's like you're talking to somewhat like-minded people, and they're bringing up the same thing you were going to bring, and you're like, oh, this is beautiful. Like everybody's, we're all,
So yeah, we're seeing the same things.
and we just did the recent Welbeck novel, Annihilation, which
Is that good?
I loved it. There's people
Okay.
saying it's not. Again, you don't
that's
mind
the one
nihilism.
about the boomer in the nursing home, right?
Yes, and you don't mind a little bit of nihilism. I don't think it's nihilist, but there's people. That's what people are like. Why did I read that? Why did I?
Why read Welbeck if you're not into a little nihilism?
God, that's another. And but the funny thing about that is,
you know what it is? It's a bunch of people who were told, "Oh, Welbeck, he's a right-wing guy, so you got to read him."
yeah, but even some of our guys were saying that. That's why we're saying like, this is kind of a miss. I was like, first off, he doesn't miss. So,
he literally can't.
Dude, the guy is just. I would listen to that guy write down his favorite ingredients from a bottle of something. Like just like it wouldn't matter. Like the guy's got the gift. But there was no content on that yet, so I didn't like. You couldn't just go on YouTube and be like the new Welbeck unless you wanted to see some like leftist,
French, you'd have to
Euro leftists talk about how there's irredeemable people in there, but they all have similar qualities. Like, and it's okay, great, awesome, thanks for your 12-minute video. Other than that, there weren't these long form podcasts that I could listen to, and I don't even like doing that anymore when I'm going to cover the book because I don't want to ape any of the people.
That's one thing that I've found. And I guess we're transitioning to the inside baseball of covering books on podcasts.
It's fun, man.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's definitely my favorite thing that I'm doing right now, even though I like to write.
But does it? Okay, let me ask you this: Do you feel it's helped your writing?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so too.
This is my capstone, like my literature course, and learning how to be a better writer.
Yeah, that's good, man.
You really do need to read like 20 books before you think about writing your own, at least, and then just keep reading.
Yeah, I don't write, but if I did, I would be like, well, I want to make sure I read everything. Like
my friend Marty Phillips, who is like the best writer in our sphere, right? His novel, it blows everything else away, in my opinion. His first one, I haven't read his collection of stories, but I've heard that that's very good as well. He can't read while he's trying to write something because he takes on the style of whoever he's reading, which I've kind of noticed myself, and I try and lean into it a bit.
Yeah.
But he's more pure about it, which he's so good. I really
everybody's got a different process, man. Like for me, I don't even mind if somebody's doing like if I'm reading something and I'm like, people can read Cormac McCarthy and see Faulkner, right? I mean, but does anybody hate him for that? I mean, maybe somebody does, but that's not the overarching narrative. But for your friend Marty, it sounds like it's a personal thing for him. It's like an integrity thing where similar to Exley, right? At the end of the day, am I okay with what I did? Is this work for me? Like, is this like whether the end result is everybody's happy,
he's got to live with it regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And which I get that a lot. So for sure.
Well, what's it now? Actually, to go back to the book for just 1 second, because that's one thing about Exley that I don't quite get.
Okay.
Is that he's looking for the absolute truth, but his whole life is built on a lie.
Yep. I think
and that contradiction doesn't really come up.
Well, I mean, I think he's correcting the lie by arresting the architects of the end, right? I mean, like, yeah, I think he realizes that it's built on a
No, but
lie.
even just his exploits in the war,
Yeah,
like he feels kind of bad about it, but like I don't know, that's the one thing where I'm like, I
yeah,
understand that we have to humanize this guy, but
yeah. The
there
war thing, and I kind of forgot about the war thing. Like halfway through the book, I got yeah. I mean, like because there's just so much stuff that happens. Like
and
and the
maybe
night
you
out,
could say that he just changed.
and the night owl is like him reliving that, right? In a sense, like it's just
Yeah.
like kind of just doing like the thing, which is clearly wrong, clearly just like a think on the fly fight or flight thing that maybe that goes against his process otherwise. And I like his arc at the end where it's just like, dude, for me to fight this issue systemically, and again, there might be a new system that comes in place led by Exley that isn't what he wanted. But just to be the idea, it's like I gotta go after Dieterling, I gotta go after my dad, I gotta go after Inez Soto. Those are three people that, more or less he held in high regard at for most of the novel in a way, and they all just they off themselves, and he's kind of just like, well, it had to happen, that had to happen. And I think again, maybe I'd love to see the war thing pop back up later in the book. That would have been nice, but maybe it got scratched off, or maybe it got cut.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. It might just have been an afterthought. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a long enough book.
it's very long. It's very long, and I will say this is probably of his books I've read. This is the most complex of all of
Mhm.
them. Even American Tabloid and American Tabloid and Colt 6000. His his style is a bit tougher to follow than the plot itself. So it's like, but the plot in LA Confidential is like, it's like you really got to like sit and think about it. You're not going to sit down with LA Confidential and pick it up and read the first 100 pages right away. Like it's not a way to enjoy this book. I mean, if you're in a rush, I guess you can. But the way I enjoyed it was I was just every day reading like a little bit almost serializing it to myself.
Mm.
And then the last day I had a day off. I remember this clear as day how this happened. I woke up, I drank like 3 cups of coffee, no breakfast, read the last 85 pages. Now, I mean, basically from where Dieterling tells Exley, gushes on everything, spills on everything, that part to the end. And I was just like, my stomach was just like,
But
on.
that's such a because I did the same thing with the ending. It
Oh,
was piecemeal, and then I read the end, and you really do have to take that in one.
one swoop. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. It's that, guys. It's a phenomenal book.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't recommend it enough. I'm
yeah.
so glad that you had me read it for this episode, and
Yeah, because we didn't know what we were gonna do, and then you were like, "What about LA Confidential?" I was like, when I said Ellroy, and you're like, "Oh, I haven't really done that. Let's do LA Confidential." I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do LA Confidential." I was like,
it's like, yeah, let's
yeah,
just jump into the hardest one.
yeah," because I've only covered the underworld first two on my show, so it's like I haven't. I read those books before I covered fiction on the show, so it was the LA Quartet. It was again what got me back into like, oh, I need to read every day. The problem is I was like, are there any other Ellroys? No, not really. It's
So,
like,
Mr. Rockney,
yeah,
for the people who might not know who you are, I can't imagine, just because how great your podcast is. But in case they don't know who you are, why don't you tell the people where they can find you and support your work?
yeah. Well, if you're on Substack, which I know a lot of your listeners and readers are, or at least consume your stuff. We're at rarecandy.substack.com. That's where you can find my co-host Cy, a lot of his writing of the Bob's Red Pill series. But we cover a lot of stuff. I mean, we're kind of a big tent podcast. I mean, it's like we roll the dice every week, and a lot of current events, a lot of not current events, a lot of health stuff, a lot of you name it. We'll talk about aliens, we'll talk about whatever. But it's I consider it a men's health show, and I think men's health is a multi-layered thing. So I think everything we do, from laughing around and doing stupid Mexican voices to covering works of fiction, all of that is men's health to me. So that's what we do. So we're on Apple. It's called Rare Candy. We're on Apple, Spotify, all the big stuff. But rarecandy.substack.com is the spot.
And just to put a note on that, I told you I would gush on your podcast a little bit before
Mm-hmm.
we started, and
Yeah.
I guess this is the place to do it. You guys are slowly becoming one of my favorites.
That's great, man.
Just a complete need to listen every time that there's a new episode. Uh, you guys covered Slaughterhouse-5. You put me onto Mind Webs,
Oh,
which is just great. I've been listening to that all the time.
it's incredible, dude.
It's
Yeah.
and just the production value alone is so good.
For anybody who doesn't know what that is, guys, it's on Internet Archive. Michael Hansen is the guy who did it, and he died, and his wife uploaded, I don't know if it's all of it, but a really big archive that I've downloaded. I've downloaded the entire thing on my computer. It's 9 gigabytes. I'm reminded quite often
Of just
that I
audio short stories.
audio
So
short
audio,
stories.
yeah.
Pretty much every big sci-fi writer of the time he's touched in terms of that, and he did quirky, they're kind of quirky little audio dramas that at the University of Wisconsin. I mean, everything's on there. Thomas Ditch, Harlan Ellison, Philip K. Dick, all of these, Ray Bradbury, lots of these short stories. They are intoxicating.
And he has such a good voice for it too.
Dude,
Like he almost sounds like Orson Welles.
he does, and it's like the whole time this guy was just hiding out at the University of Wisconsin.
Yeah, just messing around.
But it was
And
on the radio. It was
yeah,
on the radio in a way that like Art Bell was, where there was a community of people that would be like driving around at night. I like to think maybe like a little stoned, a little like, buzzed or something, like probably, and listening to like this weird like
yeah,
short
just
story.
drinking and driving
Yeah, I mean, it's Wisconsin,
in the
dude.
good old
Yeah,
days.
yeah, it's just Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin. No power steering. Yeah, just it's just like, I don't know. This is the 70s and 80s. I'm
You know,
sure it was.
chains on the tires.
Yeah, exactly. And just like listening to that, and just every time I listen to Mind Webs, it takes you like to that, and
Yeah, it's a time machine to a time I wasn't even alive for.
no, but for some reason I'm like, I can picture it,
Yeah,
or I can't picture it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I love what
yeah.
I've drawn up in
And
my head.
the same with Art Bell, where I have like the ultimate Art Bell collection on my podcast app. So I
Mhm.
just like put on old episodes of Coast to Coast,
Open
and it's
lines,
like,
dude. Nothing
yeah,
better than the open line.
I really do prefer open lines, especially when it's a good one. But it's like, yeah, just hearing people talk from just like 30 years ago, and it's like, oh wow, so much has changed, but then nothing has changed.
Yeah, I know. And his Art Bell's, I came up from college radio. I've been so like live radio. It's tough to do when you're trying to entertain people, but also like hit your quarterly, hourly
Oh yeah, he was
mark.
a master of just being able to get. He's like, well, we're at the top of the
Yeah,
hour. Can you stick around?
because you have some like Midwestern boomer who's never opened up to anyone before, telling a story about an encounter they had, whether you believe it or not. It's like really deeply personal to them, and so of course they're going to tell you every detail. And he goes, "All right, now speed it up now." Okay, well, and he goes, "Well, getting to the bottom of the hour." And if it's really good, he tells you to hold on, dude.
Oh no,
So great.
the best is when art is enthralled by something,
Yes, because you've
and
lived through him. You lived through him. Even if it's not a story for you that you care about, it's like, oh, but if art's entertained, I'm entertained.
oh, I mean, yeah, because his energy, you just feed off of his energy, right?
He was a
And
monster.
probably the best, if you're not an Art Bell fan, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, look up something called Mel's Hole.
Yes.
The Mel's Hole episodes will
Mhm.
make you even if Art Bell was a federal informant, which he may or may not have been.
That's everyone is, dude.
No, but I mean,
Y-
I don't know. Like I when I looked into the UFO thing and just learning about who John Lear was,
yeah, yeah.
it's like, oh, he was such a spook, and like him and Art Bell were just like pretty tied at the hip, and
True.
it's like, okay, how much of this can I actually believe? Was he an op kind of thing?
Well,
Is
what I say to that always is because I mean, there's so many of them, but I'm like, God, you remember when we used to have good ops?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
fair.
damn, dude, remember like in like people always talk about like the 60s, like the Laurel Canyon stuff. I'm like, yeah, but that music's fucking cooler than like Doja Cat. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
they
definitely.
used to reward their audience instead of telling their audience they were just racist and bad and like evil and all that stuff. They used to act like the decline in psyops, in my opinion, is even more interesting than who is or isn't one.
So yeah, that we could keep going for another hour. I was talking to a friend of mine about theoretical physics, right?
Yeah,
And my thought of, the competency crisis did not just appear, right?
right.
In fact, it started at the very tops of different fields, right? So the reason that we haven't had any advances in the field of physics is because the top guys in physics right now just aren't to the same
Yeah.
caliber as the guys from before.
Yeah, they're not smarter than their
And
opponent.
it might only be like fractions of degrees of IQ or learning or whatever, but that's just enough that they can't make the connections. So when that trickles down to society, you're going to see bigger and bigger gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're spot
So
on.
so your psyops are going to be worse and worse over time as well.
Yeah, it's that's a you're the only person I've had like pretty big journalists on RC, kind of like black pilled, like both sides are kind of people that like I'm like, okay, so what's your plan? Like, can you explain why we're in this scenario? Because that's always a question I ask them. Like, why are psyops not good anymore? Like, that's why do you think boomers had that like amazing practicality to just play the game? You know, like
Why do they just get to watch TV and grill? Why can't I?
yeah, because they were rewarded. They were rewarded with good content and like houses and shit, like, you know, and like a good housing market and all that stuff. We can go into a million reasons why that, but I asked them and they come up with this basically like circular answer that doesn't answer that. What you just said actually answers that better than I'll say it. Whitney Webb did when she came on our show. I was like, dude, I asked you what the fuck, like you study this shit for a living. You can't even just speculate, you know, like why? It's like, ah, damn.
I have my opinions on this, but
Of course, yeah. No, and again, and I'm not attacking or, but I did ask that question and got a really bad answer.
get
And
a
I was,
whiff.
yeah, no, it was just again, it was kind of like, really, you want to end the show with that question? It was all right, yeah, sorry, yeah. It was just
Well,
like,
anyway, all that is to say, listen to Art Bell. Definitely listen to the Rare Candy podcast if you want this and more. Because I when I meet like minded guys
uh-huh.
out here, which I consider you kind of a kindred spirit at this
Sure,
point,
sure,
I'm
I
like
agree.
I'm really glad that people are out doing things that I'd be doing if I had more time and more talent.
You got talent, dude. But you're a writer. I don't write. This is all I have. So it's like to me, like my sitting in front of the computer and typing 5,000 words is just putting on a microphone and saying them. You know, it's two different things. We need first off, the reason I started doing fiction stuff for myself to give myself a project to always be reading and all that stuff. That was, but really now I want there to be good contemporary fiction again. So I want to create the demand for good fiction because I'm a supply and demand guy right now.
Right.
There actually isn't a bunch of people who want like good fiction right now. They want genre fiction, they want like soy horror, they want all this like really dumb stuff. But if you create a demand by reading classics, by reading, you know, even stuff from the 90s or something, and people read along with you as a fun kind of companion piece, uh you create a demand for like not necessarily recreating that time because you can't, but at least that same tone and same energy and that depth that you just don't get nowadays. And I'm trying to at least create a demand for writers to actually feel the need to be like, maybe I will write that book. Somebody might read it.
Yeah, I mean, I identify with that so much. Like the name of my show is Canon Fodder, right?
Yeah.
Like when I'm writing, I'm reaching to be canonized one day,
Yeah.
and I
Why else?
might not, and I probably won't, but I'm gonna get pretty far if that's the goal, you know.
And I podcast. So one day my wife can upload my archive to Internet Archive, like
And
Michael
some guy
Hansen,
will
and
just find it.
be like, this was this guy in the West Coast. He was just doing this whole time, and like and that's it's a coping mechanism, but also like a good thing because it's a very flooded market right now. Not everybody has time to listen to everything, or even has the adventure to click. You know, the adventurous
Like, no, I'm gonna
attitude.
stay with my Joe Rogan. I'm gonna
Yeah,
stay with
yeah.
my Barstool Sports.
Right, right. Which again, hey, I delve into all that stuff too.
Oh, totally.
But yeah, I see what you mean. Like I am an adventure person where I'm like, okay, what else is there? Ooh, what else is there? I like not everyone's like that right now. And I just mean, you know, if you were to every day, if I check my analytics all the time on our show, I check them every day, but I don't sit there I don't sit there expecting every morning it to like have this drastic rise overnight or something. I just know I'm like, okay, look, there's people listening. That's great. There's people listening. If I don't post, if we were to miss a week, somebody would say, hey, are you guys okay? Which that's great. That means people are listening. But then also I'm like, 30 years from now, maybe you could be like, hey, that guy knew his shit back then. Like, I am a spiritual enough person. I mean, I'm a Catholic. I fully agree with that, but I also have my woo woo stuff that I believe in too. That,
That's why I like
I
being
might,
orthodox.
yeah,
There's room for that.
yeah, and I might still reap the benefits of people discovering me after I'm dead. So that's a coping mechanism, some would say, and I won't even argue with it.
No,
But
no, and
yeah,
everybody needs one.
yeah, yeah,
Everyone has one.
right, dude. Yeah, fuck, yeah. So
Uh, all that is to say, if you're listening to this, you know where to find my stuff. And Glenn, I'm actually going to send you the link to Marty's book because I
you
think
publish these
that's
on Substack, right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you should tag us in it because I know you can collab post on that. So
Oh totally.
you should say where to find your stuff because maybe our audience listens and doesn't know.
So you can find us over at doubledealer.substack.com.
Nice.
I will make sure to tag Glenn. And Glenn, I'm actually going to send you Marty Phillips's book.
Please.
A link to that because that's going to scratch that itch I think that you're looking for in terms
Oh,
of good right wing. Well, not even right wing, but
it
good
and yeah, it
contemporary
doesn't.
fiction. You know,
Yeah, it just needs to. There needs to be that punch, that depth, and that I don't know what it
yeah.
is. I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I read it. And
Let Them Look West has that, and
right
I will
on.
send that to you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a
please,
ringing
please.
endorsement for everybody to go read Marty's book.
Great.
Yeah, I have a couple books out. You can purchase those. If you really like our podcast, you can become a paid subscriber. Paid subscribers get their very own episode on any book of their choosing. You
Oh,
know,
that's cool. Yeah.
uh, I don't really know how to end podcasts, so I will say insert ending here.
Yeah, hell yeah. See you later, guys.